Hi, I'm Helen. Now, let me take you on a journey that changed everything I knew about trust and betrayal. At 26, I was balancing a career as a dedicated nurse and managing my personal life, which was already hard. I worked long shifts at a busy hospital, often skipping breaks to make sure my patients got the best care. Even though I was tired, I found joy in my work, knowing I made a difference each day. But outside the hospital, another challenge was waiting for me, a financial burden brought on not by bad luck, but by my own family. My parents always acted like victims of bad situations, whether it was because of failed investments or unexpected medical bills. They always seemed to be struggling with money, and their stories were convincing. My heart went out to them every time. "We just need a little help to get back on our feet," they'd say, and I believed them, thinking their need for help was only temporary. Out of love and loyalty, I made a choice I would later deeply regret. I gave them my credit card, trusting their promise that it was just for a little while. That card was supposed to be a temporary solution, but as weeks turned into months and months into years, it became their endless source of money. At first, I didn't notice the lies. I was too busy with work and too tired to look closely. When I saw new gadgets at their house or heard them mention dining at fancy restaurants, I didn't think much of it. They always had an excuse. "Oh, these are just small treats for ourselves. We've been feeling down," they'd say. I'd nod, too exhausted to question it. But slowly, the truth started to bother me. Things like a brand new TV or a designer watch on my dad's wrist began to catch my attention. They called it a small splurge and brushed off my confused looks. Then, one evening, everything became clear. I came home to find a delivery at my door, a luxury handbag ordered online with my credit card. That's when my suspicion turned into a harsh realization. I knew I had to confront them. As I drove to their house, the weight of betrayal pressed heavily on my heart. I walked in, holding up the handbag, my hands and voice shaking. "Mom, Dad, where did this come from?" "Oh, Helen, do you like it? We thought it might cheer you up. You've been working so hard," Mom said, her voice overly cheerful. "With my credit card? This has to stop. We need to talk about all these expenses," I replied, my heart heavy as I prepared for the difficult conversation ahead. They sat down, their faces shifting from surprise to defensiveness. I spread out months of credit card statements across the table, each one proving their betrayal. The room grew quiet as the truth of their actions became clear. This was the turning point, a moment when I had to take back control of my life and finances. Later, sitting at the bank, I stared at the loan officer in disbelief. "Declined? But my credit should be excellent." "I'm sorry, Helen, but your debt-to-income ratio is very high, and there are recent charges that are, well, quite extravagant," she explained. I grabbed the printout, scanning the charges. Hawaii, designer boutiques, none of it was mine. It hit me, my parents hadn't just taken advantage of me, they'd gone way too far. "I need to see every transaction from the last 6 months, I demanded, panic and anger rising in my voice. Armed with the records, I drove straight to my parents' house. The documents felt heavy, like the weight of their betrayal. I slammed the papers down on the kitchen table. "Mom, Dad, we need to talk, now," I said, my voice firm. "Helen, what's going on? You're scaring us," Mom said, glancing at the papers. "Scaring you? Look at these charges: Hawaii, luxury boutiques. When were you going to tell me about this?" I asked, my anger barely controlled. "Oh, Helen, we were going to tell you. We just needed a little break. You know, a bit of happiness," Dad said, his voice weak and pleading. "Happiness? At my expense? Without even asking me? Do you realize you've nearly bankrupted me? I can't even get a loan because of what you've done," I shouted, the frustration boiling over. "We thought you wouldn't mind. You've always helped us before," Mom whispered, avoiding my eyes. I mind a lot. This isn't helping, it's stealing. You've been living a life of luxury on my hard work. How could you do this to your own daughter?" I asked, my voice breaking. Their silence was all the answer I needed. Their eyes stayed down, unable to meet mine. "We're sorry, Helen, it just got out of hand," Mom finally said, her voice full of regret. "We don't want to lose you over this," Mom pleaded. "Sorry doesn't fix my credit score or rebuild my trust," I said firmly. "I'm taking my card back, and I'm taking steps to protect myself. This stops now. No more access to my finances." "But Helen, we need your help. Without you, No," I interrupted. "You need to figure out how to manage without relying on me. I'm not your bank. If you had been honest, Maybe we could have worked something out, but not anymore. I need to protect myself. As I left their house, the air felt heavy, charged with the weight of our broken relationship. The drive home was a blur, my mind racing. This wasn't just about money, it was about respect and independence. I had been their safety net, their endless source of funds, but that was over. As I turned the key in my front door, I stepped into a new chapter of my life, one where I was no longer a victim of their choices, but in control of my own future. The day of their trip came, and I felt a mix of dread and determination. Watching Mom and Dad pack, chattering excitedly about beaches and luau's, made my heart ache. They were so lost in their fantasy, funded by my hard work, that they didn't notice the storm of emotions inside me. "Hey, I got you a new credit card. The old one's been acting up, keeps getting declined at the scanner. I don't want you to have any issues on your trip," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my emotions were all over the place. "Oh, Helen, you always take such good care of us. Thank you, sweetheart," Mom replied, her voice full of gratitude, which only stung me more with its irony. She swapped the cards without even a second glance. Watching them pack, I added, "Make sure you keep it safe and don't lose it, okay?" "Of course, darling, we'll be careful," Dad said, giving me a quick hug. I hugged him back, my stomach churning with the weight of what I had done. The card they now held was a dummy. They had no idea that their access to my finances was finally cut off. I watched them drive off to the airport. As soon as their car disappeared around the corner, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, only to be replaced by another, the heavy anticipation of what was to come. I headed back inside, my steps feeling heavier with each moment. Over the next few days, my routine centered around checking my online banking app constantly, my anxiety growing by the hour. Then it happened. The first notification popped up, a charge attempt at a luxury resort for a lavish dinner, declined. I exhaled a breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. Later that evening, while I tried to distract myself with a book in my quiet living room, another alert came through. This time, it was for a spa treatment, declined again. I could almost picture the scene, Mom and Dad, relaxed and unaware, suddenly confused as the spa attendant politely handed back the card, a frown on her face. "I'm sorry, but there seems to be a problem with your card. It's been declined." "That can't be right. Run it again, please," Dad would insist, his voice confident but tinged with embarrassment. After the third attempt and yet another apology from the attendant, their confusion would turn to frustration. I imagined them stepping aside, calling the credit card company as their perfect holiday began to unravel. The phone rang late into the night, but I let it go to voicemail. Mom's voice came through, filled with panic. "Helen, darling, there's something wrong with the card. We can't pay for our treatments, and they're quite upset. Can you check on it for us?" I waited, gathering my thoughts before calling back. "Mom, I'm looking into it. I'll see what I can do," I lied, feeling a pang of guilt but reminding myself that this was necessary. They needed to understand the consequences of their actions. The next day brought more declined transactions, a shopping spree, a helicopter tour, a gourmet lunch. Each notification was a step closer to their realization and my freedom. This tough love was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it was crucial for my own survival. They had to learn, and reality was the only teacher that could get through to them. Early the next morning, the phone rang again, piercing the silence. I braced myself as I answered. Dad's voice, usually so confident, trembled with desperation. "Helen, please, we need your help. We can't pay for the hotel, and they won't let us check out until we settle the bill." Taking a deep breath, I steadied my voice, making sure each word carried the weight of my decision. "Dad, no, I won't bail you out this time. Do you even realize what you've done? Years of lying and using me, enough is enough." "But we're your parents, Helen, you can't just leave us stranded." We apologized. "Okay, we're sorry." Sorry doesn't change the past, Dad. It doesn't erase the debt you've piled up in my name, and it doesn't rebuild the trust you shattered. You need to understand the consequences of your actions, I said, my voice firm yet steady. They had crossed too many lines, and now, it was time for them to face the reality of what they had done. "Helen, we really didn't think it would come to this. We thought we could manage it, that you wouldn't have to know," Mom said, her voice a mix of pleading and regret. "Not have to know? You committed fraud in my name," I replied, the weight of their betrayal echoing in the stillness of my kitchen. "I've already taken steps to prevent any further damage. The card you have is cancelled. You need to figure out how to get back on your own. But we have nothing here, no money, Not even for a flight back. Please, just this once more, Dad begged, desperation in his voice. No, Dad, this is the hard lesson you need to learn. From now on, you handle your finances, and I handle mine. No more mixing, no more helping out. It's time for both of you to take responsibility. As their protests grew more frantic, a pang of sorrow hit me, for the parents I thought I had, but that feeling was quickly overshadowed by a stronger sense of duty to myself. I need to go now. I hope you find a way back, and I truly hope you learn from this. Goodbye, Mom and Dad. Hanging up the phone, the finality of the moment settled over me like a heavy blanket. The bridge had been burned, the ties cut. It was a decision shaped by years of hidden exploitation, now painfully exposed. I sat down, a swirl of emotions taking hold, grief for what was lost, but also a new sense of freedom from the financial chains I'd unknowingly worn for so long. The house was quiet, too quiet, as if it, too, was breathing a sigh of relief. This was my new reality, no longer a victim, but a survivor, no longer a daughter manipulated by guilt, but an independent woman stepping into a future I would control. I stood in my modest apartment, watching the sun dip below the city skyline, the weight of my decisions wrapped around me like a cloak. It was done. The calls to my credit companies, the fraud alerts, consultations with a financial advisor, every step carefully planned to secure my future. In the quiet of my living room, I dialed legal services, ready to hold my parents accountable, not out of spite, but necessity, to prevent future betrayals. Yes, I'd like to discuss options for financial fraud committed by family members, I said to the person on the other end. Their reassurances were a balm to my frayed nerves. With each action, I felt the chains of my old life, one defined by their needs and deceit, fall away. I was forging a new path, one that was finally mine. Filling out the paperwork for the fraud report, my hands were steady. I detailed the years of financial abuse, and as I submitted it, it felt like closing a door that had let in nothing but storms. This is to protect my future, I reminded myself, the mantra easing the sting of reporting my own parents. The days that followed were a blur, meetings with my bank to restructure my accounts, setting up new, secure financial protections, and therapy sessions to work through the guilt and betrayal that had knotted up my thoughts. One evening, after a particularly long day, I walked into my apartment and felt, for the first time in years, a sense of peace. I found a letter slipped under my door. It was from Mom and Dad. My hands trembled as I opened it, half expecting pleas for forgiveness or more manipulative excuses, but instead, it was an apology, real, or at least as real as it could be given the circumstances. We understand now the pain we've caused, they wrote. While we can't undo the past, we hope you can find it in your heart to forgive us someday. We're getting the help we need to manage our finances and our lives. I let the letter fall onto the counter, a sense of finality washing over me. Forgiveness seemed like a distant and winding road, not something I was ready to travel just yet. Right now, it wasn't about them, it was about me. It was about healing and building the life I deserved. That night, as I sat watching another sunset, a cup of tea warming my hands, I felt a profound peace settle within me. The ties that had once bound me were not just loosened, they were severed, leaving me free to create a future on my own terms. A future not dictated by guilt or manipulation, but one driven by my own choices, integrity, and the hard lessons I had learned along the way. Freed from both financial and emotional turmoil, I was no longer just Helen the daughter, the nurse, or the enabler. I was Helen the survivor, the architect of her own destiny. As the sun disappeared, leaving the sky streaked with colors of hope, I knew I was exactly where I needed to be, free. Now that Helen has taken bold steps to free herself from financial and emotional manipulation, how would you handle a similar situation with someone close to you? Would you be able to make the tough decisions necessary to protect yourself? Let's discuss in the comments below. Share your thoughts and experiences. If you found Helen's journey inspiring or thought-provoking, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Your support helps us bring these important narratives to light. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to reading your comments.
The text message notification chimed at 2:47 a.m. and I should have ignored it. Should have rolled over in my king-sized prison bed and pretended I didn't see Casey's phone glowing on his nightstand. But curiosity killed more than just cats, and I was about to learn exactly how much. My name is Paige, and I've been living in a golden cage for 3 years. The estate sprawls across 47 acres of pristine Connecticut countryside, complete with manicured gardens, a tennis court I'm not allowed to use when Casey has business associates over, and enough marble to build a small museum. From the outside, it looks like paradise. From the inside, it feels like solitary confinement with Egyptian cotton sheets. I slipped Casey's phone off the nightstand, my heart hammering against my ribs. His passcode was still my birthday. A cruel irony considering he'd forgotten the actual date 2 years running. The message was from someone named Maren. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. This charade with your little housewife is getting old. When are you finally going to pull the trigger?" My blood turned to ice water. I scrolled up, my hands trembling. "Casey, soon. Lawyer says we need to be strategic about the timing. Don't want her getting any ideas about the estate." "Maren, she's too stupid to figure anything out. Have you seen her lately? She looks like a ghost wandering around that mausoleum you keep her in." Casey. "Perfect. Easier to handle when she's broken down. Trust me, by the time I'm done, she'll be grateful for whatever scraps I throw her." The phone slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the hardwood floor. Casey stirred but didn't wake. I held my breath, watching his chest rise and fall, this man I'd promised to love and honor who was plotting to destroy me in my sleep. I picked up the phone and kept reading. "Maren, what about the prenup?" Casey. "Ironclad. She gets nothing. The estate, the investments, the business, all protected. She'll walk away with whatever's in her personal account, maybe 50 grand if she's lucky." Maren. 50 grand, that's it? After 3 years of playing the perfect wife? Casey. She should have thought about that before she married up. Besides, what's she going to do? She has no friends, no family that matters, no job skills. I made sure of that. I wanted to vomit, or scream, or both, or... Instead, I carefully placed the phone back exactly where I'd found it and crept out of the bedroom. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions, portraits of Casey's ancestors watching me with dead eyes. I'd always hated those paintings. Now I understood why. They looked just like him. The house felt different at night. During the day, it was a stage set where I performed the role of the grateful wife. At night, it revealed itself for what it really was, a beautiful trap. I found myself in Casey's study, a room I was technically allowed to enter but never encouraged to linger in. The mahogany desk dominated the space, its surface clear except for a leather blotter and a crystal paperweight shaped like a bull. How fitting. The desk drawers were locked, but I knew where Casey kept the key. He'd shown me once, years ago, back when he still pretended to trust me. "Just in case something happens to me," he'd said, kissing my forehead, "you'll need to know where the important papers are." What a joke. The only thing that would happen to Casey was him walking away from our marriage richer and more powerful than ever. I opened the bottom drawer and found a manila folder labeled Estate Documentation. Inside were property surveys, tax assessments, and legal documents I didn't understand. But one thing caught my eye. A geological survey from 15 years ago, before Casey had even bought the property. The technical language was mostly gibberish, but certain phrases jumped out. Significant groundwater reserves, potential commercial value, recommend further investigation. I photographed every page with my phone, my hands steadier now than they'd been in months. For the first time since reading those texts, I felt something other than despair. I felt curious. Casey thought he knew everything about this estate, about me, about what I was capable of. He'd spent 3 years systematically isolating me, controlling every aspect of my life, making me smaller and smaller until I barely cast a shadow. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd forgotten that I was my grandmother's granddaughter, and she'd always told me, "Know the ground you walk on, Paige. Land keeps secrets, but it also keeps promises." I closed the drawer and locked it, leaving everything exactly as I'd found it. Upstairs, Casey was still sleeping peacefully, probably dreaming about his new life with Marin. Let him dream. I had work to do. The next morning, Casey left for the city at exactly 7:30 a.m., same as always. I watched his BMW disappear down the winding driveway from the kitchen window, counting to 60 before I moved. "Helen," I called to our housekeeper, who was loading the dishwasher. "I'm going to walk the grounds today. Get some fresh air." She looked up, surprised. I hadn't voluntarily left the house in months. "That's wonderful, Mrs. Grant. Should I pack you a lunch?" "Just some water, thanks." I'd never really explored the estate before. Casey had always made it clear that certain areas were off limits, too dangerous, too muddy, too something. But standing at the edge of the formal gardens, I realized I'd been living on this land for 3 years without knowing what I was standing on. The geological survey was folded in my jacket pocket. I pulled it out, trying to match the technical drawings to the actual landscape. According to the map, there should be a natural spring somewhere in the northeast corner of the property. I found it after 20 minutes of hiking through overgrown trails. A small stream bubbled up from between moss-covered rocks, crystal clear and surprisingly strong. I knelt down and cupped the water in my hands. It was ice cold and tasted better than anything that came out of our kitchen tap. My phone buzzed. A text from Casey. "Staying in the city tonight. Business dinner. Don't wait up." Right, business dinner with Marin, no doubt. I took photos of the spring, the surrounding area, everything. Then I called my sister. "Paige?" Vivian's voice was sharp with concern. "You never call during the day. What's wrong? I need to ask you something, and I need you to not freak out." Oh God, what did he do now? I told her about the texts, about the divorce plans, about the geological survey. Vivian listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her. "That bastard," she finally said. "I knew he was controlling, but this is next level. Viv, I need to know. Do you remember what Grandma used to say about land?" "Which thing?" "She said a lot of weird stuff about land. About knowing the ground you walk on. About land keeping secrets and promises." Vivian was quiet for a moment. "She used to say that land was the only thing that couldn't lie to you. That if you paid attention, really paid attention, it would tell you everything you needed to know." "Do you think she meant something specific?" "Paige, Grandma was a lot of things, but she wasn't mystical. She was practical. If she said land keeps promises, she meant it literally, like financially." After we hung up, I sat by the spring for another hour, thinking. The water rights survey was 15 years old. A lot could change in 15 years. Property values, water scarcity, environmental regulations. I needed expert help, but I couldn't use Casey's contacts. I needed someone who didn't know him, someone who wouldn't report back. That evening, I used the computer in the guest room to research water rights consultants. I found a company based in Hartford, far enough from Casey's usual circles, but close enough for a meeting. The next morning, I called them. "Holmes Environmental Consulting. This is Jorge." "Hi, I'm calling about a property assessment. I inherited some land and I'm trying to understand its value." "Sure, I can help with that. What kind of property are we talking about?" 47 acres in Connecticut. There's a natural spring, and I found an old geological survey that mentioned groundwater reserves." Jorge's tone shifted, became more interested. "How old is the survey?" 15 years. "And you're the owner?" I hesitated. Technically, Casey owned the estate, but the way he'd been talking about the divorce, about leaving me with nothing, it's complicated. I'm married, but I'm exploring my options. "I understand. Listen, can you meet me at the property? I'd need to see the site and review any documentation you have." "When?" "How about Thursday? My husband's in the city that day." "Perfect. I'll text you the address. After I hung up, I realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear this time, but from something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. I spent the rest of the week preparing. I made copies of everything in Casey's desk drawer, researched water rights law, and practiced explaining the situation without sounding like a desperate housewife plotting revenge. Thursday morning, Casey left for the city, as usual. At 10 a.m., a dusty pickup truck pulled into our circular driveway. Jorge was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-40s, with kind eyes and calloused hands. He looked around at the estate with obvious appreciation. "Beautiful property," he said. "How long have you lived here?" 3 years, but I'm just starting to really see it. We walked to the spring together. Jorge knelt by the water, just like I had, but he knew what he was looking for. He pulled out instruments I didn't recognize, took measurements, made notes. Mrs. Page, just Page. Page, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. My heart started racing. Okay, do you have any idea what you're sitting on here? Water? Jorge laughed, but not unkindly. Not just water. This is a primary aquifer. Based on these flow rates and the geological survey you showed me, you're looking at potentially millions of gallons of high-quality groundwater. Millions? And with the current drought conditions, water scarcity issues, and new environmental regulations, water rights are more valuable than ever. I'm talking serious money, Paige. Life-changing money. I stared at the innocent-looking spring, this little stream that had been quietly flowing on our property for who knows how long. How much money? Jorge pulled out his phone and showed me recent sales data. Similar properties in Connecticut have sold water rights for anywhere from $2 to $8 million. $8 million. Flowing under Casey's feet every day, and he had no idea. What would I need to do to sell the rights? That depends on how the property is titled and what kind of legal situation you're in. I took a deep breath. It's complicated. Vivian arrived Saturday morning with 2 suitcases and a scowl that could cut glass. "Where is he?" she demanded, marching through the front door like she owned the place. "City. He won't be back until Sunday night." "Good. We need to talk." Helen appeared with coffee and pastries, shooting me a knowing look. "I'll be in the garden if you need anything, Mrs. Grant." Vivian waited until Helen was gone, then turned on me. "Paige, what the hell are you doing?" "What do you mean?" "I mean this whole water rights thing. You called me talking about millions of dollars and geological surveys like you're some kind of real estate mogul. You can barely order takeout without asking Casey's permission." The words stung because they were true, or had been true. "Things are different now." "Are they?" "Because from where I'm sitting, you're still in the same house, still married to the same controlling asshole, still jumping at shadows." "I'm not jumping at..." "You whispered the entire time we talked on the phone yesterday, in your own house." I set down my coffee cup harder than necessary. "What do you want me to say, Viv? That I should just roll over and let him destroy me? I want you to fight back. Actually fight back, not just whatever this is. This is fighting back. This is hiding. Again." Vivian leaned forward. "Do you know what Mom said when I told her I was coming to visit you?" "I don't want to know." She said, "Poor Paige, she never did learn how to stand up for herself." The familiar shame washed over me, hot and suffocating. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you made a decision without considering what Casey would think? When was the last time you left this house without permission? "I don't need permission to..." "Then prove it. Come with me to lunch in town, right now." I opened my mouth to explain why that wasn't possible, then stopped. Why wasn't it possible? Casey was gone. I had a car. I was a grown woman. "Fine," I said. "Let's go." Vivian's eyebrows shot up. "Really?" "Really." We drove to the little bistro in town, the one I'd been wanting to try for months. The hostess seated us by the window, and for the first time in ages, I felt normal, like a person instead of a possession. So tell me about this water consultant, Vivian said over her salad. Jorge, he thinks the water rights could be worth millions. And you trust him? He has no reason to lie. He doesn't even know Casey exists. Yet, what happens when Casey finds out? He won't, not until it's too late. Vivian studied my face. You've changed. Have I? There's something different about you, harder. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Casey. Where are you? Helen said you left. My stomach clenched automatically, the old fear response kicking in. Then I looked around the restaurant, at the normal people having normal conversations, at my sister watching me with sharp eyes. I typed back, having lunch with Vivian, back later. I didn't know she was visiting. Surprise visit. We need to talk when I get home. I put the phone away without responding. Let me guess, Vivian said. He's checking up on you. It's fine. It's not fine. It's never been fine. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Paige, I need you to understand something. Whatever you're planning with this water thing, it's not going to work if you're still afraid of him. I'm not afraid. You're terrified. I can see it in your face every time that phone buzzes. She was right, and we both knew it. So, what do I do? You get help, real help, legal help. I can't use Casey's lawyers. Then find your own. That afternoon, while Vivian napped off her jet lag, I researched family law attorneys. I needed someone who specialized in high-asset divorces, someone who wouldn't be intimidated by Casey's reputation. I found a firm in Hartford and called their office. Quinn and Associates, this is Jamie. Hi, I need to speak with someone about a divorce, a complicated one. I handle those. Can you tell me a bit about your situation? My husband is planning to divorce me and leave me with nothing, but I may have discovered assets he doesn't know about. Hidden assets? Not hidden exactly, just overlooked. Can you come in for a consultation? When? How about Monday afternoon, 2 o'clock? Perfect. Sunday night, Casey returned from the city in a foul mood. He barely acknowledged Vivian's presence and went straight to his study. We need to talk, he called from the doorway. Vivian squeezed my shoulder. Remember what we discussed. I followed Casey into his study. He closed the door behind us and turned to face me, his expression cold. I don't like surprises, Paige. It was just lunch. With your sister, who I didn't know was coming. She's family. She doesn't need an invitation. Casey's eyes narrowed. Everything okay with you lately? You seem different. Different how? I don't know. More defiant. The word hung in the air between us. Defiant. Like I was a child who'd talked back instead of a wife who'd had lunch with her sister. I'm fine, Casey. Good. Because I've been thinking about our future, and I need to know you're on board with some changes I'm considering. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my voice steady. What kind of changes? We'll discuss it later, when your sister's gone. He opened the study door, dismissing me. As I walked upstairs, I heard him on the phone. It's me. Yes, she's acting strange. No, I don't think she knows anything, but we should move faster than planned. I paused on the landing, listening. Set up the meeting with your lawyer. I want this done by the end of the month. The end of the month. 3 weeks. I had 3 weeks to save myself. Monday afternoon, I sat across from Jamie in her Hartford office, trying not to fidget with my wedding ring. So, let me understand this, Jamie said, reviewing her notes. Your husband is planning to divorce you, leave you essentially penniless, and he's moved up his timeline to the end of this month. That's right. And you've discovered water rights on the property that could be worth millions. According to the consultant, yes. Jamie leaned back in her chair. Here's the thing, Paige. Connecticut is an equitable distribution state, which means marital assets get divided fairly, not necessarily equally. But if your husband can prove the estate was his separate property before marriage, it was. He bought it 2 years before we met. Then you'd have no claim to it in a divorce. However, she held up a finger, water rights are a different animal entirely. They can be severed from the land and sold separately. Meaning, if you can establish ownership of those rights independent of the property itself, you might have options. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Heard you've been asking questions about Casey. We should meet. Maren. I stared at the screen, my blood turning cold. Everything okay? Jamie asked. His mistress just texted me. What does she want? To meet, apparently. Jamie frowned. That's unusual. Mistresses typically avoid the wife, unless she's worried about something. I texted back, when and where? The response came immediately. Coffee shop on Main Street, 1 hour. I have to go, I told Jamie. Paige, be careful. If they're moving up their timeline, they might be getting desperate. An hour later, I walked into the coffee shop and spotted Maren immediately. She was everything I wasn't. Polished, confident, wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Paige. She stood up, extending a manicured hand. Thank you for coming. I didn't shake it. What do you want? To talk, woman to woman. About what? Maren gestured to the chair across from her. About Casey, about your marriage, about the future. I sat down, every muscle tense. I know this is awkward, Maren continued, but I think we can help each other. Help each other how? Casey's told me about the divorce, about the prenup, about how difficult you've been lately. Difficult? Asking questions, snooping around, making him nervous. So Casey had noticed my behavior. I don't know what you're talking about. Maren smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Come on, Paige. We both know you're smarter than Casey gives you credit for. The question is, what are you going to do with that intelligence? I'm listening. Casey wants this divorce to be clean. Quick. No drama, no fighting, no ugly court battles that could damage his reputation. And you want that too. Of course I do. I'm going to be his wife soon. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. So what's your offer? Cooperate with the divorce. Don't fight the prenup. In exchange, Casey's prepared to be generous, more generous than the prenup requires. How generous? $200,000, cash, plus you keep your personal belongings and your car. I almost laughed. $200,000 when I was sitting on water rights worth millions. That's very generous, I said carefully. I'm glad you see it that way. Can I think about it? Of course, but don't take too long. Casey's patience has limits. That evening, Casey was unusually affectionate at dinner. He poured wine, asked about my day, even complimented Helen's cooking. You seem relaxed, I said. I am. I had a good day, productive meetings. About what? Business, boring stuff. He reached across the table and took my hand. I've been thinking about us, Paige, about our future. Oh? I know I've been distant lately, distracted, but I want you to know that whatever happens, I care about you. The lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly I almost believed it. That's nice to hear. I met with some people today about making some changes, financial changes that could benefit both of us. What kind of changes? I can't get into details yet, but I want you to know that I'm looking out for your interests too. My phone buzzed, a text from Jorge. Can you meet tomorrow? I have news about the water rights. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. Who was that? Casey asked. Vivian. She's worried about her flight tomorrow. Right, I'll be sorry to see her go. Another lie. Casey had barely spoken to Vivian during her entire visit. After dinner, I helped Helen clear the dishes. Mrs. Grant, she said quietly, I found something today while cleaning Mr. Grant's study. She pulled a folded paper from her apron pocket. It fell out of one of his books. I unfolded it. It was a letter, written in my grandmother's careful handwriting, addressed to me. My dearest Paige, if you're reading this, it means Helen has given you this letter as I instructed. I hope you never need the information I'm about to share, but I fear you might. The estate Casey bought sits on land that once belonged to our family. Land that was stolen from us through legal trickery 60 years ago. I've spent decades researching the original property rights, and I believe there may be a way to reclaim what was always ours. The documents you need are in the safety deposit box at First National Bank, box 247. The key is hidden behind the loose brick in the garden wall, third brick from the left, bottom row. Trust no one but Helen with this information. She's been my eyes and ears for longer than you know. Be careful, my darling. Some cages are harder to escape than others. Grandma, I stared at the letter, my hands shaking. Mrs. Grant? Helen whispered. Are you all right? Helen, how long have you known about this? Your grandmother asked me to watch over you when you married Mr. Grant. She was worried about him from the beginning. Why didn't you tell me sooner? She made me promise to wait until you were ready to fight for yourself. I looked at Helen's kind, weathered face. And you think I'm ready now? I think you've been ready for weeks. You just needed to realize it yourself. Upstairs, Casey was on the phone again, his voice low and urgent. No, she doesn't suspect anything. Yes, I'm sure. The meeting with your lawyer is set for Friday. By next week, this will all be over. Friday. 4 days. I had 4 days to turn the tables on my husband. Tuesday morning, Casey announced he was cutting off my personal credit cards. Just temporarily, he said over breakfast, not looking up from his phone. Cash flow issues with one of my investments. What am I supposed to use for expenses? Ask Helen to put everything on the household account, or ask me if you need something specific. The message was clear. Complete financial control. No independence, no privacy, no way to hire lawyers or consultants without his knowledge. Of course, I said sweetly. Whatever you think is best. Casey finally looked up, surprised by my compliance. Good. I'm glad you understand. After he left for the city, I drove to First National Bank. The safety deposit box key was exactly where Grandma's letter said it would be, hidden behind a loose brick that looked like it had been disturbed recently. I'd like to access box 247, I told the bank clerk. I'll need to see identification and verify you're an authorized user. My heart sank. Of course Grandma couldn't have put me on the account. I'd been a teenager when she died. Actually, the clerk said, checking her computer, it looks like the box was transferred to your name 3 years ago, right around the time you got married. 3 years ago. Grandma had been gone for 5 years by then. Transferred by whom? Helen Richardson. She had power of attorney for the original owner. Helen, always one step ahead. Inside the safety deposit box were dozens of documents. Property deeds, survey maps, legal correspondence dating back to the 1960s, and a thick folder labeled Water Rights, Original Grant 1962. I photographed everything with my phone, then called Jorge. I need to see you today. I have new information. I was just about to call you. I have news too. Can you meet me at the property? An hour later, Jorge was spreading documents across Casey's dining room table while Helen served coffee and kept watch. This changes everything, Jorge said, studying Grandma's papers. According to these documents, your family held the original water rights to this entire area. They were never legally transferred when the land was sold. What does that mean? It means you may already own the water rights. You don't need to buy them from your husband. They were never his to begin with. My phone buzzed. A text from Marin. Time's up. Casey needs an answer about our offer. I showed Jorge the message. Who's Marin? The mistress. She offered me $200,000 to cooperate with the divorce. Jorge whistled. They're scared. They know something. What's your news? I've been doing more research on the aquifer. It's bigger than I initially thought. We're not talking about 2 to 8 million anymore. How much bigger? Try 20 to 30 million, maybe more. The room spun. $30 million. There's something else, Jorge continued. I've been contacted by a state environmental agency. They're looking for private water sources to help with the drought emergency. They're prepared to pay premium prices for long-term contracts. How premium? 50 million over 10 years, guaranteed. Helen dropped her coffee cup. It shattered on the marble floor. Mrs. Grant, she whispered, you need to see this. She was staring out the window. Casey's BMW was coming up the driveway. He's not supposed to be back until tonight, I said. Jorge started gathering the documents. Where can I hide these? Upstairs, guest room. Hurry. I helped Jorge carry everything upstairs while Helen cleaned up the broken coffee cup. By the time Casey walked through the front door, we were sitting in the living room having what looked like a perfectly innocent conversation about landscaping. Jorge Holmes, Jorge said, standing to shake Casey's hand. I was just telling your wife about some drainage issues in your back garden. Casey's eyes narrowed. Drainage issues? Nothing serious, just some standing water after heavy rains. Might want to have it looked at before it becomes a problem. I wasn't aware we had any drainage problems. They're easy to miss, Jorge said smoothly. I'll send you a report with my recommendations. After Jorge left, Casey cornered me in the kitchen. What was that really about? Exactly what he said. Drainage problems. Since when do you care about drainage problems? Since Helen mentioned it was killing the roses. Casey studied my face. You're lying. I'm not. Yes, you are. You get this little wrinkle between your eyebrows when you lie. You always have. My hand flew to my forehead automatically. There it is, Casey said. Now tell me what's really going on. Nothing's going on. Paige, I'm trying to be patient with you, but my patience has limits. Is that a threat? It's a fact. I know you've been acting strange lately, asking questions, meeting with people, going places without telling me. I had lunch with my sister. And what else? Nothing else. Casey grabbed my wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. I'm going to ask you one more time. What are you up to? Let go of me. Answer the question. I said let go. Or what? You'll call the police? Tell them what? That your husband asked you a question? Helen appeared in the doorway. Mr. Grant, there's a phone call for you. Says it's urgent. Casey released my wrist and stalked out of the kitchen. Thank you, I whispered to Helen. There's no phone call, she whispered back. But you need to be more careful. He's suspicious. That night, Casey was on the phone until almost midnight. I could hear him through the bedroom wall, his voice getting more agitated as the conversation went on. No, I don't think she knows about the divorce yet, but something's changed. Yes, I'm sure. Move the meeting up. Tomorrow, if possible. I don't care what it costs, just get it done. Tomorrow. He was moving the meeting to tomorrow. I waited until Casey was asleep, then crept downstairs to call Jamie. They moved the meeting up, I whispered into the phone. It's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow? That's not enough time to... It has to be enough time. What do I need to do? Meet me at my office first thing in the morning. And Paige, bring everything, every document, every piece of evidence you have. What if Casey tries to stop me? Then we'll deal with that too. But Paige, once we start this, there's no going back. Are you ready for that? I looked around the dark kitchen, at the marble counters and crystal chandelier, at the golden cage that had been my prison for 3 years. I'm ready. Wednesday morning, Casey left for his meeting at 8 a.m. sharp. I waited exactly 10 minutes. then grabbed the documents from the guest room and drove straight to Jamie's office. "We need to move fast," Jamie said, spreading everything across her conference table. "If he's serving you papers today, we have maybe 6 hours to get ahead of this. What's the plan?" "We file a motion to freeze all marital assets pending investigation of separate property claims. Then we establish your independent ownership of the water rights through your grandmother's estate. Can we do that in 6 hours?" "We can try, but I need you to sign some papers first." Jamie slid a stack of documents across the table. "This establishes a corporation in your name, Murray Water Holdings. It'll be the entity that owns and sells the water rights." "Murray?" "Your maiden name. Keeps it separate from anything connected to Casey." I signed everything, my hand shaking slightly. "Now," Jamie said, "I need you to call Jorge and tell him to expedite everything. If we're going to sell these rights, we need to do it today." "Today?" "Before Casey's lawyers can file any injunctions or freeze orders." I called Jorge while Jamie prepared the legal filings. "Jorge, we need to close the water rights deal today." "Today? Paige, these things usually take weeks." "We don't have weeks. Can you do it or not?" "The State Environmental Agency has been pushing for a quick close. If you're willing to accept their $50 million offer, I can have contracts ready by this afternoon." "Do it." At 2 p.m., I was back at the estate, sitting in Casey's study with a stack of contracts worth $50 million. Jorge had worked miracles. The state agency was so desperate for water sources they'd agreed to an emergency closing. "Sign here, here, and here," Jorge said, pointing to signature lines. "This transfers the water rights from your grandmother's estate to Murray Water Holdings. This sells those rights to the state for $50 million, paid in installments over 10 years. "And Casey can't touch any of it?" "Not a penny. The rights were never his, and the corporation is entirely separate from marital assets." I signed the contracts just as Helen burst into the study. "Mrs. Grant, Mr. Grant is coming up the driveway, and he's not alone." Through the window, I could see Casey's BMW followed by a black sedan. "Lawyers," Jorge said grimly. "They're here to serve you." "What do I do?" "Act surprised, act hurt, act like the innocent wife who has no idea what's happening." Jorge gathered the contracts and stuffed them into his briefcase. "I'll get these filed immediately. As of right now, you're worth $50 million. He slipped out the back door just as Casey walked through the front, followed by a man in an expensive suit carrying a briefcase. "Paige," Casey called. "Can you come into the living room, please?" I found them standing by the fireplace. Casey looked nervous. The other man looked like he'd done this 1,000 times. "Paige, this is Nigel Elliott. He's a lawyer." "Nice to meet you," I said, extending my hand. Nigel didn't shake it. Instead, he pulled papers from his briefcase. "Mrs. Grant, I'm serving you with a petition for divorce." The papers felt heavy in my hands. I stared at them, letting my face crumple. "Casey, what is this?" "I'm sorry, Paige. I didn't want it to happen this way." "You're divorcing me?" "We've grown apart. You know that." "But I thought we were working on things." Casey had the decency to look uncomfortable. "It's better this way, for both of us." "I don't understand. Is there someone else?" "That's not relevant," Nigel interrupted. "What's relevant is that your husband is prepared to be generous in the settlement." "Generous how?" $200,000, plus your personal belongings and your vehicle." I let the tears come. They weren't entirely fake. 3 years of marriage ending with a legal document and a stranger in my living room was genuinely devastating, even if I'd known it was coming. 200,000, that's all? "It's more than the prenup requires," Nigel said coldly. "Your husband is under no legal obligation to give you anything." "Casey, please. Can we talk about this privately?" Casey looked at Nigel, who nodded. 5 minutes, Nigel said. "I'll wait in the car." After he left, Casey sat down across from me. "I know this is hard," he said, "but it's for the best." "Is it because of her, Marin?" Casey's jaw tightened. "How do you know about Marin?" "She texted me, asked me to meet her. What did she say? That you wanted a clean divorce. No fighting. And I don't want to fight, Casey. I just want to understand why. Casey relaxed slightly. We want different things, Paige. You want a quiet life, a simple life. I need more than that. So you're leaving me for her. I'm leaving you for me. My phone buzzed. A text from Jamie. Contracts filed, water rights officially transferred. You're free. I looked at Casey, this man who'd controlled every aspect of my life for 3 years, who thought he was leaving me with nothing. Okay, I said quietly. Okay? I'll sign the papers. I won't fight the divorce. Casey's relief was visible. Thank you. I know this isn't easy, but I have one condition. His expression hardened. You're not in a position to make conditions. I want to stay in the house until the divorce is final, just a few weeks. Paige, please. I need time to figure out where I'm going, what I'm going to do. You owe me that much. Casey considered this. Fine, but no drama, no scenes, and if you change your mind about fighting this, I won't. Good. He stood up. Nigel will be in touch about the paperwork. After they left, Helen found me sitting in the study, staring at the divorce papers. Mrs. Grant, are you all right? Helen, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did my grandmother really ask you to watch over me? Helen sat down across from me. Because she knew what kind of man Casey was. She saw how he looked at you, like you were something to be owned, not loved. And she knew about the water rights. She knew about everything. The original land theft, the water, the potential value. She spent years planning how to get it back. Why didn't she just tell me? Because you had to be ready to fight for it. She said you couldn't give someone power. They had to take it. I looked down at the divorce papers, then at my phone showing Jamie's text. Helen? Yes, Mrs. Grant? I think I'm ready to take it. Friday afternoon, Casey returned to the estate with Nigel and Maren in tow. I watched from the upstairs window as they got out of their cars, Casey gesturing grandly at the property like he was showing off his kingdom. Helen, I called softly, it's time. She nodded and disappeared downstairs. We'd rehearsed this moment for 2 days. I found them in the library, Casey behind his mahogany desk, like a king holding court. Maren sat in the leather chair to his right, looking perfectly at home. Nigel stood by the window with his briefcase. Paige, Casey said, not bothering to stand. Glad you could join us. Of course. This is my home too, for now. Maren smirked. Not for much longer. Maren, Casey warned, but he was smiling. Nigel opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of papers. Mrs. Grant, these are the final divorce settlement documents. As discussed, you'll receive $200,000, your personal belongings, and your vehicle. That's very generous, I said, sitting down in the chair across from Casey. We think so, Casey said, especially considering the prenup. About that, I said, pulling out my own folder. I had some questions. Casey's smile faltered slightly. Questions? Well, I've been thinking about the property division, the estate specifically. What about it? I was wondering about the water rights. The room went dead silent. Casey's face went pale. Water rights? Nigel asked. Yes. I've been doing some research, and apparently water rights can be separate from land ownership. I was curious if Casey actually owns the water rights to this property. Of course I do, Casey said, but his voice was tight. I bought the entire property. Did you, though? I opened my folder and pulled out Grandma's documents. Because according to these records, the water rights to this land were never legally transferred when your family bought it in the 1960s. Nigel stepped forward. Where did you get those documents? My grandmother's safety deposit box. She was very thorough in her record keeping. Casey stood up abruptly. Paige, what are you doing? I'm protecting my interests, just like you taught me. Those documents are meaningless, ancient history. Are they? I pulled out another set of papers. Because I had a lawyer review them. Turns out they're not meaningless at all. Marin leaned forward. Casey, what is she talking about? Nothing. She's grasping at straws. Actually, I continued, I'm talking about $50 million. The number hung in the air like a bomb. 50 million? Nigel's voice cracked. That's what the state environmental agency paid for the water rights? Yesterday. Casey's face went from pale to red. That's impossible. Is it? I pulled out the sale contract. Murray Water Holdings, my corporation, officially owns and has sold the water rights to this property. The first installment of $5 million was deposited into my account this morning. Casey lunged forward and grabbed the contract. His hands were shaking as he read it. This can't be legal. I'll sue. You'll what? I stood up, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt taller than him. Sue me for selling something that was never yours? The land is mine. The land, yes, the water underneath it, that was always mine. Marin was staring at the contract over Casey's shoulder. $50 million? Over 10 years. But yes. Casey threw the papers on the floor. You conniving little... Careful, I said quietly. There are witnesses. Nigel was frantically making notes. We need to file an injunction immediately. Freeze the assets, challenge the sale. On what grounds? I asked. That my husband didn't know what he was buying when he purchased this property? That he failed to do proper due diligence? You tricked me. I protected myself. There's a difference. Casey's breathing was getting shallow. He sat down heavily in his chair. This changes everything, Nigel muttered. Does it? I asked. Because I'm still willing to honor the original divorce agreement. Everyone stared at me. You keep the land, the house, all your other assets. I keep the water rights and the money from their sale. We both walk away with what's ours. What's ours? Casey's voice was barely a whisper. You just stole $50 million from me. I didn't steal anything. I reclaimed what was stolen from my family 60 years ago. Marin stood up abruptly. Casey, I need to speak with you privately. Sit down, Casey snapped. No, I think we should... I said sit down. But Marin was already backing toward the door. This isn't what we discussed. This isn't what you promised. Marin, don't you dare. I'm sorry, Casey. I can't do this. She fled the room. A moment later, we heard the front door slam and her car starting. Casey stared at the empty doorway, his mouth hanging open. Well, I said. That was unexpected. Nigel cleared his throat. Mr. Grant, we need to discuss our options. What options? Casey's voice was hollow. She just took everything. Not everything. You still have the business, the other properties, mortgaged, all of it. I was counting on selling this place to cover the debts. I felt a flicker of something that might have been sympathy. Might have been. Casey, I said gently, you could have just been honest with me. We could have worked together. He looked up at me with eyes full of rage and something else, fear. You planned this, all of it. I protected myself, just like you taught me to do. Casey clutched his chest suddenly, his breathing becoming labored. Mr. Grant? Nigel stepped forward. Are you all right? Casey tried to stand, but collapsed back into his chair. Can't breathe? Helen, I called. She appeared instantly, as if she'd been waiting just outside the door. Call 911, I said. I think he's having a panic attack. As Helen made the call, I knelt beside Casey's chair. Breathe slowly, I said. In and out. You're going to be okay. He looked at me with confusion and hatred and something that might have been respect. Why? He whispered. Because despite everything, I'm not you. The ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. As the paramedics loaded Casey onto a stretcher, he grabbed my wrist. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes," I said quietly. "It is." The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in October. Casey didn't contest it. Couldn't contest it, really, not after his lawyers explained that fighting me would only cost him more money he didn't have. I signed the papers in Jamie's office while Casey signed his at the hospital, still recovering from what the doctors called acute stress-induced cardiac episode. Panic attack, in other words. Turns out losing $50 million in one afternoon can do that to a person. "So what now?" Jamie asked, sliding the final documents into a folder. "Now I figure out what comes next." "Any ideas?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mrs. Grant, this is David Chen from the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection." I nearly dropped the phone. "Yes?" "I hope you don't mind me calling directly. We got your number from Jorge Holmes. We have a proposition for you." "What kind of proposition?" "We're establishing a new water conservation task force. We need someone with your expertise to help identify and develop other private water sources throughout the state. The position comes with a substantial consulting fee and equity participation in future deals." I looked at Jamie, who was listening with raised eyebrows. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. But Mrs. Grant, what you accomplished with the Murray Water Holdings deal, that's exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need." After I hung up, Jamie grinned. "From housewife to water mogul in 6 months. Not bad." "Is that what I am now? A mogul?" "You're whatever you want to be. That's the point." I drove back to the estate one last time. The moving truck had already taken my belongings to the condo I'd bought in Hartford. Nothing fancy, just a place that was mine. Helen was waiting on the front steps with a small suitcase. "Ready?" I asked. "More than ready." She'd accepted my offer to be my personal assistant at triple her old salary. Mr. Grant called this morning. What did he want? To fire me. I told him I'd already quit. We got in my car, not the BMW Casey had generously let me keep, but a new Tesla I'd bought myself, and drove toward the gate. "Mrs. Grant," Helen said as we reached the end of the driveway, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, and it's just Paige now." "Do you ever regret it? What you did to him?" I thought about Casey, probably sitting in that big empty house, trying to figure out how to pay the mortgage without the windfall he'd been counting on. Marin had moved on to someone else within a week, a tech entrepreneur she'd met at some charity gala. "No," I said. "I don't regret it." "Not even a little?" He had 3 years to treat me like a partner instead of a possession. 3 years to be honest about his plans. 3 years to show me even basic respect. And instead, he tried to throw me away like garbage. My phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. "Saw the news article about your water deal. Mom wants to know if you're taking investors." I laughed and showed Helen the message. "Your mother wants to invest? My mother wants to take credit. There's a difference." We drove in comfortable silence for a while, the estate disappearing in the rearview mirror. "Paige," Helen said eventually, "what your grandmother wrote in that letter, about some cages being harder to escape than others." "Yeah?" "She was wrong about one thing." "What's that?" "You didn't escape the cage. You bought it, renovated it, and turned it into something completely different. That evening, I sat in my new living room with a glass of wine and my laptop, reading the news coverage of the divorce. The headlines were brutal. Tech executive's marriage implodes over $50 million water rights deal. Wife turns tables on cheating husband in epic revenge plot. From trophy wife to water mogul. The Paige Grant story. My phone rang. Casey's number. I almost didn't answer. Then curiosity got the better of me. "Hello, Casey." "Paige." His voice was different, smaller. "I saw the news." "I figured you would. They're making me look like an idiot." "Are they wrong?" Silence. I never meant for it to go this far, he said finally. Yes, you did. You meant for it to go exactly this far. You just thought you'd be the one holding all the cards at the end. What happens now? Now you figure out your life and I figure out mine. And we never see each other again? That was always the plan, wasn't it? Another silence. Paige? What? I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. It's worth something, I said. Not much, but something. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and started researching water rights law in neighboring states. The Connecticut job offer was tempting, but I had bigger ideas. My phone buzzed one more time, a text from an unknown number. Ms. Murray, this is Rebecca Walsh from Walsh Environmental Consulting in California. We've been following your work and would love to discuss a partnership opportunity. Are you available for a call tomorrow? I smiled and typed back. I'm available. Outside my window, Hartford sparkled in the evening light. Somewhere out there were aquifers and underground streams and forgotten water rights just waiting for someone smart enough to find them. Someone like me. I raised my wine glass to the window, to the city, to whatever came next. Here's to knowing the ground you walk on, I said aloud. Then I opened my laptop and got back to work.
The phone rings at 2:17 in the afternoon, and just like that, my world splits in half. Before and after. Living and dying. Truth and lies. Vanessa, it's your mother. You need to come now. Uncle Robert's voice cracks, something I've never heard in my 65 years of knowing him. She's had a heart attack. They're working on her at St. Mary's. My fingers go numb. The coffee mug slips, shatters against the kitchen tile. Dark liquid spreads like blood across the white floor. Tom! I call out, my voice echoing through our too big house. Tom, I need you. He appears in the doorway of his home office, wireless earbuds in place, annoyance etched across his face. I'm on a call. My mother had a heart attack. I need you to drive me to St. Mary's. He sighs, that familiar dismissive exhale that's been grinding away at my soul for 23 years. I've got the Peterson merger meeting in 30 minutes. Can't you take an Uber? The coffee spreads, seeping into the grout lines between tiles. I watch it create patterns, little rivers of brown that remind me of the veins on my mother's hands. My mother is dying. I say, each word precise and sharp. And you're worried about a meeting? Don't be dramatic, Vanessa. Your mother's always been healthy as a horse. He taps his earbuds. I need to get back to this call. Something snaps inside me. Maybe it's the last thread of pretense, or perhaps it's just my patience. You know what? Never mind. I'll drive myself. That's my girl, he says, already turning away. Always independent. My hands shake as I grab my keys. The coffee remains unpainted across the floor. A modern art installation of my shattered afternoon. I leave it there, a testament to this moment. The drive to St. Mary's is a blur of red lights and horn blasts. My phone buzzes repeatedly. Aunt Margaret, Emily, Uncle Robert. I can't answer. Can't split my focus between driving and the reality waiting at the hospital. I find a spot in the emergency parking, crooked across two spaces. Let them tow it. Let the whole world burn down. My mother needs me. The emergency room smells like industrial cleaner and fear. Uncle Robert stands by the intake desk, his normally pristine suit wrinkled, his silver hair disheveled. Where is she? I ask. He pulls me into a hug that feels like surrender. They're still working on her. Margaret's back there. They only allowed one person. Tom? He asks, looking over my shoulder. Meeting, I say. The word tastes like acid. Uncle Robert's jaw tightens. He's never liked Tom, though he's been too polite to say it outright. Of course he is. A doctor appears, still wearing surgical gloves. There's blood on his scrubs. My mother's blood. The world tilts sideways. Mrs. Mitchell? He asks. I nod, unable to speak. I'm sorry. We did everything we could. The words wash over me like ice water. Uncle Robert's arm tightens around my shoulders, holding me upright as my knees buckle. Would you like to see her? The doctor asks gently. I shake my head. Not yet. I want to remember her alive, laughing in her garden last Sunday. telling me about her new rose bushes, telling me I deserved better, telling me it wasn't too late to start over. My phone buzzes again. Tom's face appears on the screen, probably calling to ask about dinner plans or complain about his meeting. I silence it without answering. Emily's on her way, Uncle Robert says softly. She was in class when Margaret reached her. I nod, still staring at my silent phone. 23 years of marriage, and my husband couldn't be bothered to drive me to my mother's deathbed. The thought settles in my chest like a stone, heavy with certainty. Mom was right. It's not too late to start over. Emily burst through the emergency room doors like a whirlwind, her dark hair wild, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She looks so much like me at her age that for a moment I forget to breathe. Mom! She crashes into me, and I hold her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. I got here as fast as I could. Is Grandma? I shake my head against her shoulder. She stiffens, then pulls back to look at me. Where's Dad? The question hangs between us like a razor wire. Before I can answer, Aunt Margaret emerges from the corridor, her face drawn and pale. She takes one look at us and opens her arms. Emily hesitates, glancing at me again. He had a meeting, I say quietly. The Peterson merger. Emily's expression shifts, confusion, then understanding, then something harder. She's seen this before countless times. The missed birthdays, the empty chair at her graduation, the perpetual excuse of work that always seems to matter more than family. Of course he did, she mutters, turning to accept Aunt Margaret's embrace. Uncle Robert's hand finds my shoulder. The doctor needs some paperwork filled out, he says gently. Why don't you let me handle that? I nod, grateful. Forms and signatures feel impossible right now, like trying to solve complex equations while drowning. My phone buzzes again. Tom's message lights up the screen. How's your mother? Meeting ran long. Ordering takeout for dinner. Emily reads the message over my shoulder and makes a sound. Half laugh, half sob. Seriously? Grandma just died and he's asking about dinner. Emily, I start, but she cuts me off. No, Mom. Don't defend him. Not this time. She runs her fingers through her tangled hair. A gesture so like her father it makes my chest ache. You know what? I'm done pretending everything's okay. Grandma always said. She stops abruptly, tears welling in her eyes. What did she say? I ask, though I think I already know. She said you deserved better. That we both did. Emily wipes her eyes roughly. She was right. Aunt Margaret moves closer, her voice low and steady. Helen worried about you, Vanessa. She saw what this marriage was doing to you. Even if you couldn't. Or wouldn't, Uncle Robert adds quietly. The truth of their words settles over me like ash. 23 years of making excuses, of smoothing things over, of pretending Tom's indifference was just his way. 23 years of watching my mother's concerned looks, of fielding her gentle suggestions about therapy or separation. My phone buzzes again. Another message from Tom. Should I wait dinner for you? Emily makes that sound again, but this time it's pure disgust. She grabs my phone and types rapidly before I can stop her. Emily, don't. Too late, she says, handing the phone back. Someone needed to tell him. I read her response. Mom's mother just died. Don't wait up. Better yet, don't wait at all. The three dots appear immediately, showing Tom is typing. Then they disappear. Reappear. Disappear again. Finally, a single message. We'll discuss this attitude when you get home. Discuss what? Emily's voice rises. The fact that his wife's mother died and he couldn't be bothered to show up? That he's more concerned about dinner than supporting his family. Lower your voice, sweetheart, Aunt Margaret says, but there's approval in her eyes. A nurse approaches, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Mitchell? We need to discuss arrangements. The word arrangements hits me like a physical blow. My mother is dead, and my husband is worried about takeout. The absurdity of it all threatens to overwhelm me. I'll help, Emily says firmly, taking my arm. We don't need him for this. As we follow the nurse, I realize Emily's right. We don't need him. Maybe we never did. My mother's last words to me echo in my mind. It's never too late to start over, sweetheart. Never too late to demand more. I squeeze Emily's hand, feeling stronger than I have in years. Tom wants to discuss attitudes? Fine. We'll discuss plenty when I get home. Starting with divorce papers. The funeral home smells like artificial flowers and secrets. I sit at the mahogany desk, staring at Mom's life insurance documents, while the funeral director drones on about payment options. Something's wrong with the numbers, but my grief-addled brain can't quite grasp what. Mrs. Mitchell, he says, sliding another form across the desk. We'll need the initial payment today. The policy information your husband provided seems to have some discrepancies. Discrepancies. The word feels wrong in my mouth. The policy appears to have lapsed 3 months ago. The room tilts slightly. That's impossible. My mother never missed a payment in her life. He clears his throat. According to our records, the automatic payments stopped when the account was closed. What account? More paper shuffling. The joint account she shared with your husband. He was helping manage her finances, correct? The pieces clicked together with nauseating clarity. Tom had offered to help with Mom's finances last year, claiming his financial expertise would be beneficial. She'd agreed reluctantly, after he'd worn her down with his usual mix of charm and condescension. My hands shake as I pull out my phone, opening the banking app. The joint account I share with Tom shows a balance far lower than it should be. I start scrolling through transactions and my stomach drops. Casino withdrawals, online gambling sites, wire transfers to accounts I don't recognize. The funeral director's voice seems to come from very far away. Mrs. Mitchell? Are you all right? I need a moment, I manage to say, standing up so quickly my chair scrapes against the floor. I need to make a call. In the hallway, I dial Uncle Robert's number. He answers on the first ring. The life insurance lapsed, I say without preamble. Tom's been stealing money. Not just from me, from Mom. A long pause. Come to my office. Now. 20 minutes later, I sit across from my uncle's desk while he pulls up financial records on his computer. As Mom's attorney, he has access to everything. Jesus Christ, he mutters, clicking through screens. Vanessa, this goes deeper than you think. The house equity line, your retirement accounts, Emily's college fund. Each word hits like a physical blow. How much? Initial estimate? Close to 700,000. The room spins. That's not possible. Someone would have noticed. The bank. Tom works in finance. He knows how to hide things. Uncle Robert's voice hardens. He's been bleeding you dry for years. My phone buzzes. Tom's face appears on the screen along with the text. Where are you? We need to discuss funeral arrangements. A laugh bubbles up in my throat, harsh, ugly. Discuss funeral arrangements? He stole my mother's life insurance money, and he wants to discuss arrangements. Don't respond, Uncle Robert says sharply. We need to handle this carefully. I'm calling Sarah Chun. Your criminal lawyer friend? He nods grimly. We're going to need her. But first we need to secure what's left. Do you have any accounts he can't access? Before I can answer, another text from Tom appears. Found the coffee mess in the kitchen. Had Maria clean it up. You're welcome. Don't forget we have dinner with the Petersons tonight. The casual entitlement of it, the assumption that I'll play my usual role, smile through dinner while he networks, something snaps inside me. I want him destroyed. I say, surprised by how calm my voice sounds. Not just divorced. Destroyed. Uncle Robert studies me for a long moment. He will be. But we have to be smart about this. He doesn't know that we know. So what do I do? Go home. Act normal. Have dinner with the Petersons. He starts typing on his computer. Let him think he's still in control while we gather evidence. Can you do that? I think of Mom, of all the times she told me I was stronger than I knew. Of Emily's college fund, emptied by her father's addiction. Of 23 years of subtle manipulation and calculated neglect. Yes, I say, standing up. I can do that. I learned from the best, after all. What do you mean? I smooth my skirt, check my makeup in my phone's reflection. Tom taught me everything I know about pretending. The Peterson dinner feels like a performance in hell. I sit at our oversized dining table, watching Tom charm our guests while my skin crawls with every practiced laugh, every rehearsed story. He's wearing his favorite blue tie, the one I gave him for our 20th anniversary, Paid for with money he probably gambled away. Vanessa's taking some time off, Tom explained smoothly, reaching for the wine bottle. Family matters. Sandra Peterson's face crumples with manufactured sympathy. Oh yes, we heard about your mother. Such a shock. I grip my fork tighter, imagining driving it through Tom's hand as he pours more wine. Yes, I manage. Quite unexpected. Speaking of family, Tom continues, Emily's considering law school. Following in your footsteps, John. John Peterson beams. Smart girl. The firm's always looking for fresh talent. My phone vibrates in my lap. A text from Sarah Chun, Uncle Robert's lawyer friend. Documents ready. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Excuse me, I murmur, standing. I need to check on dessert. In the kitchen, I lean against the counter, breathing deeply. The catering company's tiramisu sits perfectly plated on the silver tray. Another performance piece in this elaborate charade. Need help? I startle. Sandra Peterson stands in the doorway, her expression oddly intent. I'm fine, I say automatically. She steps closer, voice dropping. Are you? Because I recognize that look during dinner. I used to wear it myself. I don't. My first husband was a gambler too. She smooths her expensive blouse. Lost everything before I caught on. The signs are always there, aren't they? We just choose not to see them. The tiramisu blurs as tears threaten. How did you? No. She smiles sadly. The way Tom keeps checking his phone under the table. The slight tremor in his hands. The desperate edge to his charm. She pulls something from her pocket. A business card. When you're ready, call her. Best divorce attorney in the state. Before I can respond, Tom's voice booms from the dining room. Ladies, we're dying of dessert deprivation out here. Sandra squeezes my arm and helps me lift the tray. As we return, I catch Tom sending another furtive text, his jaw tight with tension. Later, after the Petersons leave, Tom loosens his tie. Good night, all things considered. John seemed impressed about Emily's law school plans. Emily isn't going to law school. He blinks. What? She's never wanted to be a lawyer. She's applying to art therapy programs. I start gathering plates. But you'd know that if you ever actually listen to her. Don't start, Vanessa. Not tonight. He reaches for his phone again. Expecting an important call? His head snaps up. Something flickers across his face. Fear? Work never stops, you know that. Right. Work. I set the plates down carefully. Like the work you did managing my mother's finances? The color drains from his face. What are you talking about? The life insurance policy lapsed, Tom. Funny timing, considering all those casino withdrawals from her account. He recovers quickly, switching to his patronizing smile. You're upset about your mother. You're not thinking clearly. Why don't you take one of your pills and... I'm thinking very clearly. I pull out my phone, show him the banking screenshots. $700,000, Tom. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? His facade cracks. I can explain. The market's been volatile. I had to make some temporary adjustments. Save it for your lawyer. He grabs my arm as I turn away. Don't threaten me, Vanessa. You have no idea what you're doing. Who do you think pays for this house? Your clothes? Your entire lifestyle. I look at his hand on my arm, then into his eyes. You're right. I don't know what I'm doing. I smile, channeling his own practice charm. Yet, the threat in that single word hits him. His grip loosens. Get some sleep, Tom, I say softly. You look tired. Must be all that work you're doing. I leave him standing there, his phone buzzing again in his pocket. Upstairs, I send a quick text to Sarah Chun. Make it 8 a.m. I'm ready. Sarah Chin's office feels like a war room. Bank statements and legal documents cover every surface, each page revealing another layer of Tom's deception. I stare at a credit card statement, charges from a jewelry store I've never heard of, dated last Valentine's Day. He's been busy, Sarah says, highlighting another suspicious transaction. And not just with gambling. My throat tightens. There's someone else? Several, potentially. But that's not our primary concern. She slides a document across the desk. This is. The paper blurs before my eyes. Foreclosure notice. Our house, my house. the one I'd spent 23 years turning into a home. He took out a second mortgage without your knowledge, Sarah explains. Technically illegal, but he forged your signature quite convincingly. A knock interrupts us. Uncle Robert enters, his face grim. The SEC filing just came through. Tom's company is under investigation for financial irregularities. How bad? I ask. Criminal charges bad. He sits heavily. The Peterson merger was a smokescreen. The whole company's about to implode. My phone buzzes. Emily. Mom, where are you? Dad's acting weird. He's packing up his office stuff. I'll call you back, sweetheart. I look at Sarah. How much time do we have? Hours, maybe. Once the SEC announcement goes public. He'll run, Uncle Robert finishes, with whatever money he can grab. Sarah starts gathering papers. We need to freeze accounts immediately. File emergency motions. Another text from Emily. Mom, seriously. He's asking about your mother's safety deposit box. The blood drains from my face. The jewelry. Mom's jewelry. What jewelry? Sarah asks sharply. My mother's collection. Family heirlooms. She kept them in a safety deposit box at First National. My hands shake as I type a response to Emily. He's trying to access it? He can't, Uncle Robert says. Helen changed the access permissions last month. Only you can open it now. I remember Mom's last visit to the bank, how insistent she was about updating the paperwork. She knew. Somehow she knew. My phone rings, Tom's face appearing on screen. I answer on speaker. Darling. His voice oozes charm. I need a favor. Your mother's safety deposit box. I need to inventory the contents for the estate. Could you meet me at the bank? Sarah shakes her head violently. I'm rather busy today, I say carefully. Perhaps tomorrow? It really needs to be now. For legal purposes. A pause. Unless you don't trust me? The facade cracks slightly on those last words. A hint of desperation bleeding through. Of course I trust you, I lie smoothly. But I'm having lunch with Emily. Why don't you join us? We can go to the bank afterward. Emily's not answering my calls. That's odd. She's sitting right here. I watch Sarah frantically typing on her laptop. Tom? Is everything okay at work? The line goes dead. He's panicking, Uncle Robert says quietly. That makes him dangerous. Sarah looks up from her laptop. Account freeze orders are processing. I've notified the SEC about potential flight risk. But we need to move fast on the safety deposit box. If there's anything valuable. My phone chimes again. A text from an unknown number. Your mother knew what he was. She left something for you. Back of the box. Don't let him find it first. Aunt Margaret, I breathe. She must have been with Mom when. We need to go, Sarah interrupts. Now. Before he figures out we're on to him. I stand gathering my purse. What about Emily? I'll pick her up, Uncle Robert offers. Take her to our house until this blows over. As we rush to the elevator, another text arrives from Tom. I tried to protect you from this. Remember that. The threat in those words chills me. But underneath the fear, something else burns. Rage, pure and clarifying. He stole from my mother. Tried to steal her last gift to me. Used our daughter as leverage. Sarah, I say as we reach her car. Forget playing defense. I want everything. The house, the accounts, his reputation. Everything. She smiles grimly. Now that's what I wanted to hear. The safety deposit box lies open before me. Empty except for a single envelope. Mom's jewelry, generations of family history, gone. The bank manager shifts uncomfortably behind me. Mr. Mitchell accessed the box an hour ago, she explains. He had the proper documentation. Forged documentation, Sarah corrects sharply. She's already on her phone, alerting authorities. My hands shake as I open the envelope. Inside, a handwritten note from my mother. My dearest, if you're reading this, Tom got here first. But remember, I always taught you to keep your real treasures closer to home. Love, Mom. My phone buzzes. Emily's text makes my blood freeze. Dad's at the house. He's acting strange. Says we need to talk. Sarah grabs my arm. Don't. We'll call the police. He's with my daughter. I'm already moving. Call them, but I'm going. The drive home is a blur. I find them in Tom's study. Emily perched nervously on the leather sofa. Tom standing by the window, still in his office clothes but somehow disheveled, undone. Family meeting? I ask, keeping my voice steady. He turns and I barely recognize him. His usual polished facade has cracked, revealing something desperate underneath. You've been busy today. So have you. How much did Mom's jewelry fetch? Emily's sharp intake of breath tells me she didn't know. Dad, you didn't. I did what I had to do. He moves to his desk, opens a drawer. To protect this family. By stealing? Gambling away our savings? Having affairs? Affairs. Emily stands. What affairs? Tom slams the drawer shut. Enough. I had a plan. Everything was under control until you started interfering. Control. I laugh and it sounds foreign even to me. Is that what you call forging my signature? Emptying our daughter's college fund. Emily makes a small wounded sound. My college fund? I was going to replace it, Tom insists. The Peterson merger was a fraud, I finish. Like everything else about you. He moves suddenly and something glints in his hand. Mom's favorite pearl necklace. One piece left. Thought, maybe we could start over. I'll get help. Counseling. Whatever you want. The pearls catch the light, and I remember Mom wearing them at my wedding, her eyes full of concern she tried to hide. She knew even then, didn't she? Whatever I want. I step closer. I want the last 23 years back. I want my mother to have died knowing her grandson's education was secure. I want. Mom. Emily's voice cuts through my rage. He's crying. And he is. Tom Mitchell, master of manipulation, stands before us with tears streaming down his face. For a moment I almost weaken. Then I see his other hand moving toward his pocket. Emily, I say carefully, go to Uncle Robert's house. Now. But. Now. She hesitates, then runs. Tom doesn't try to stop her. You know what's in my pocket? He asks quietly. Plane ticket? Fake passport. He pulls out his phone. One button. One call to my friends at the SEC. They'd love to know about Uncle Robert's creative accounting from the 90s. Aunt Margaret's tax issues. The family's not as clean as you think. The bottom drops out of my world. You'd destroy them too? I'm already destroyed. His smile is terrible. Might as well make it a family affair. My phone buzzes, Sarah, probably with the police. But it's too late. The damage is done. What do you want? A head start. 24 hours. You keep the house, what's left of the accounts. I keep the evidence against your family. He holds out the pearls. And you keep these. As a reminder. The pearls feel heavy in my palm. Not just jewelry now, but the weight of an impossible choice. Save my family or serve justice. Mom's voice echoes in my head. Keep your real treasures closer to home. I look at Tom, this stranger I spent half my life with, and make my decision. 24 hours, I say. Then I burn your world down. He nods once and walks past me. The front door clicks shut with devastating finality. I sink into his chair. Pearls clutched in my fist, wondering if revenge is worth the price of becoming him. 23 hours and 47 minutes after Tom walked out, I find Mom's old recipe box in the back of the kitchen cabinet. Inside, wrapped in yellowed newspaper, lies a small red USB drive. My hands shake as I plug it into my laptop. Folders appear, dozens of them meticulously labeled with dates going back 5 years. Financial records, email screenshots, photos of Tom with various women, bank transfers, gambling receipts. My mother, the quiet gardener who never touched a computer, had been building a case against my husband for years. My phone rings. Saracen. Vanessa, we found him. Private airfield outside the city. Flight plan filed for Buenos Aires. 13 minutes left of his head start. And the SEC evidence against my family? Bluff. We checked, there's nothing. He played you. The recipe box feels heavy in my hands. How fast can you get to the airfield? Already on my way. Police too. I grab my keys, the USB drive secure in my pocket. Tell them to wait. I need 5 minutes with him first. The private terminal is small. lit by fluorescent lights that make everything look sickly. Tom stands at the counter, arguing with the clerk. He's wearing the same suit from yesterday, but somehow he's aged a decade. Problems with your flight? I ask. He spins, face twisting. You're early. Mom always said punctuality was a virtue. I hold up the USB drive. Along with keeping good records. The color drains from his face. What is that? Everything. Mom knew what you were doing. Every transaction, every affair, every lie. I step closer. She was protecting me all along. The jewelry in the safety deposit box? A trap. She knew you'd go for it first. He lunges for the drive. I sidestep easily. He's not as quick as he used to be. It's over, Tom. SEC agents are outside. Police too. You promised 24 hours. His voice cracks. You're just like me, breaking promises when it's convenient. No. I set Mom's recipe box on the counter. I'm like my mother. Patient, thorough, and done with your games. He laughs, a hollow sound. What do you want? Money. I can get more. I want you to know what it feels like. To realize everything you built was a lie. That someone you trusted was watching, waiting, collecting evidence of every mistake. His face hardens. You really think you can survive without me? You're nothing but a housewife with what? A daughter you gambled away the future of? A mother who outsmarted you? A family who actually loves me? I open the recipe box. Look inside. He hesitates, then peers in. Among the recipe cards lies a single sheet of paper, Mom's last bank statement. The one showing her real account, with enough zeros to make his eyes widen. She left everything to me, I say quietly, the day before she died. Almost like she knew what was coming. You bitch. He grabs for the box, but freezes at the sound of doors opening behind us. Time's up, I say as Sarah Chen enters with 2 FBI agents. Oh, and Tom? The pearls were fake. Mom sold the real ones years ago, to pay for Emily's secret trust fund. They lead him away, his protests echoing through the terminal. Sarah squeezes my shoulder. You okay? I look down at the recipe box, generations of family wisdom, love disguised as instructions for pot roast and apple pie. Mom's final gift wasn't the money or the evidence. It was the reminder that real strength comes from protecting what matters, not destroying what hurts you. I'm better than okay, I say, closing the box gently. I'm free. Outside, the sun rises over the airfield. Somewhere across town, Emily is safe with Uncle Robert and Aunt Margaret, probably making breakfast and planning her future. A future secured by a grandmother who saw everything and said nothing, until exactly the right moment. Mom always did have perfect timing. The garden blooms exactly as Mom planned it. Late autumn roses climb the trellis, their deep red petals catching the morning light. I kneel in the soft earth, transplanting the seedlings she started in her greenhouse, her last project, now mine to finish. Emily appears beside me, 2 steaming mugs in hand. The prosecutor called. Dad took the plea deal. I accept the coffee, breathing in its warmth. How do you feel about that? Honestly. She settles onto the garden bench. Relieved. No trial means no more secrets coming out. No more pretending. The morning paper lies folded on the bench. Tom's guilty plea relegated to a small column on page 6. The mighty falling quietly without fanfare. Uncle Robert says the restitution payments will start next month. Emily continues. Not that we need them. No, I agree, thinking of Mom's hidden accounts, the careful planning that ensured our security. But it's not about the money. It's about consequences, she finishes. The wisdom in her voice makes my chest ache. She's grown so much these past few months. I brush dirt from my hands and join her on the bench. I found something in Mom's study last night. I think you should see it. From my pocket, I pull out a small envelope. Inside, a photograph. Emily at 5 years old, perched on Mom's lap while they plant marigolds. Behind them, partially hidden by the greenhouse door, Tom stands watching. His expression a mix of confusion and something like fear. She knew even then, Emily says softly. Didn't she? She knew a lot of things. I touched the photograph gently, including how to play the long game. A car pulls into the driveway. Emily's new boyfriend, Michael, right on time for Sunday brunch. He emerges carrying a folder of tax documents. Research for Uncle Robert's case against Tom's former business partners. Emily stands brushing off her jeans. Speaking of long games, Michael found something interesting in Dad's old company records. Want to hear about it over breakfast? I watch her walk toward him, confident and purposeful. She has her grandmother's steel beneath her gentle exterior. A quiet strength that doesn't need to announce itself. The morning mail sits unopened on the kitchen counter. On top, a letter from the prison where Tom awaits sentencing. I don't need to read it to know what it contains. More explanations, more justifications, more attempts to rewrite our history. I feed it into the garden shredder, letting the pieces scatter across Mom's flower beds as mulch. She would appreciate the symbolism, turning poison into fertilizer, decay into growth. Inside, Emily and Michael spread papers across the breakfast table while Aunt Margaret pours coffee. Uncle Robert peers at financial statements through his reading glasses, making notes in the margins. Look at this, Michael says as I enter, pointing to a highlighted section. The pattern goes back further than we thought. There are others involved, bigger players. I should feel triumph, knowing we've uncovered more evidence, more ways to ensure justice. Instead, I feel something quieter. A peaceful certainty that Mom would approve of this moment. Not because of the revenge or justice, but because her kitchen is full of family working together, protecting what matters. The recipe box sits on the windowsill above the sink, catching morning light. Inside, between cards for pot roast and apple pie, lie the seeds of my mother's legacy. Not just the evidence that brought down Tom, but the wisdom to know when to fight and when to grow. Emily laughs at something Michael says, the sound bright and unguarded. Aunt Margaret shares a knowing look with Uncle Robert. The garden outside continues its slow, steady blooming. I think of Tom in his prison cell, surrounded by concrete and steel, and realize that true revenge isn't about destruction at all. It's about flourishing despite those who tried to clip your roots. Mom knew that too. She always did have the best gardening advice.
The day my father betrayed me started like any other family gathering, with fake smiles and hollow pleasantries. I stood in our family's grand living room, watching my stepmother Meredith arrange fresh-cut roses in an antique vase, while my father paced near his mahogany desk, checking his watch every few minutes. My name is Jessica, and I'd spent the last 3 years working alongside my father at his company, learning every aspect of the business he'd promised would one day be mine. That promise died today. "Everyone, please sit down," my father announced, his voice carrying that authoritative tone I'd grown up respecting. "I have an important announcement to make." Quentin, my stepbrother, sprawled across the leather armchair with a smug expression that made my stomach turn. At 22, he'd never worked a day in his life, preferring to spend his time partying and posting about his entrepreneurial mindset on Instagram. "As you know," my father continued, "I've been considering the future of our family business." He smiled at Meredith, who beamed back at him. "After careful consideration, I've decided to transfer majority ownership and control to Quentin." The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the armrest of the sofa, my knuckles turning white. "What?" The word came out as a whisper. "It makes perfect sense," Meredith chimed in, placing her hand on Quentin's shoulder. "A fresh perspective is exactly what the company needs." "Dad," I managed to say, fighting to keep my voice steady. "We talked about this. I've been working there for 3 years. I have an MBA. I know every client, every supplier." "Jessica, please," my father cut me off, raising his hand. "This decision wasn't made lightly. Quentin has some innovative ideas that align better with our future vision." Quentin leaned forward, his designer watch glinting in the afternoon light. "Don't worry, sis. I'll make sure to keep you on in some capacity. Maybe in HR?" I stood up abruptly, my legs shaking. "Some capacity? Dad, you promised me. You said when I finished my MBA." "Things change, Jessica," Meredith interrupted. "We have to think about what's best for the family." "The family?" I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. "I am your family. I'm your daughter." My father wouldn't meet my eyes. "You'll still receive your salary, of course, but Quentin will be taking over as CEO next month." Next month? The room started spinning. You've already decided everything? The paperwork is being finalized, my father said, finally looking at me. I'm sorry if this disappoints you, but it's what's best for everyone. I grabbed my purse, nearly knocking over a side table in my haste. Congratulations, Quentin, I managed to say, proud that my voice didn't crack. I hope you enjoy running the company I spent 3 years helping to build. Jessica, don't be dramatic, Meredith called after me as I headed for the door. This is exactly why we needed someone more level-headed in charge. I paused at the doorway, turning back one last time. Dad? He still wouldn't look at me. We can discuss this later, Jessica. No, I said quietly. We won't. I walked out of that house with my head held high, waited until I reached my car, and then let the tears fall. My phone buzzed. A message from my best friend Lucy. How did it go? I started the engine, my vision blurring. They gave everything to Quentin, I typed back. Everything I worked for. Everything Dad promised me. Lucy's response was immediate. I'm coming over. Don't do anything stupid before I get there. As I drove away from my childhood home, I caught a glimpse of my father watching from the window. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw something flicker across his face. Regret, maybe? But then Meredith appeared beside him, and he turned away. 3 years of my life. 3 years of early mornings, late nights, missed vacations, and canceled dates. 3 years of learning every aspect of the business, of earning the respect of our employees and clients. All of it handed to Quentin on a silver platter because his mother had wormed her way into my father's life and convinced him that her precious son deserved my inheritance. My phone buzzed again. Lucy, we'll figure this out. You're not alone. I took a deep breath, wiping away the last of my tears. Lucy was right. This wasn't over. I might have lost my inheritance, but I hadn't lost my knowledge, my experience, or my determination. They wanted to push me aside? Fine. But they were about to learn that I was my father's daughter in more ways than one. And I didn't give up without a fight. 3 days after my world imploded, I sat in Virgil's law office, surrounded by towering bookshelves and the smell of old leather. The family lawyer had known me since I was in pigtails, and his familiar, weathered face showed genuine concern as I recounted what had happened. I just don't understand, I said, twisting a tissue in my hands. How could he legally do this? I thought the company was meant to be split between any children. Virgil removed his reading glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Your father restructured the company ownership last year. As majority shareholder, he had the right to transfer his shares to whoever he chose. Last year? The betrayal cut deeper. So he'd been planning this? Jessica. Virgil hesitated, then stood up and walked to a large filing cabinet. There's something else you should know. Something about your grandmother's will. My grandmother had passed away 5 years ago, leaving everything to my father. Or so I'd thought. Virgil returned with a thick folder, placing it on his desk with careful precision. Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, and she was, let's say, prescient about certain possibilities. He pulled out a document and handed it to me. There's a clause here that your father doesn't know about. Your grandmother set up a trust fund in your name, with very specific conditions. My hands shook as I read the paper. $2 million? I whispered. But why didn't I know about this? The clause stipulated that you could only access the money if you started your own successful business by the age of 30. Your grandmother believed in entrepreneurship, not just inheritance. She wanted her legacy to inspire creation, not dependence. I sat back, stunned. Does my father know about this? Virgil shook his head. No. Your grandmother was very clear. This information was to be revealed only to you, and only if you were ever disinherited from the family business. She knew, I breathed. Somehow, she knew something like this might happen. Your grandmother watched your father marry Meredith, Virgil said quietly. She had concerns. My phone buzzed. Another message from Lucy asking how the meeting was going. I ignored it, focusing on the document in my hands. What qualifies as a successful business? I asked. According to the terms, You need to show a profitable quarter within your first year of operation. The business must be entirely yours. No family involvement. I let out a shaky laugh. No risk of that anymore? There's more, Virgil said, pulling out another document. Your grandmother left detailed records of various business contacts, potential opportunities, even market research she'd conducted. She wanted to give you tools, not just money. Why didn't she just tell me all this before she died? She believed you needed to find your own path first. Her words were, Jessica needs to understand what it means to lose everything before she can truly build something of her own. I stood up and walked to the window, watching traffic flow below. $2 million, I repeated. That's enough to start something real. It is, Virgil agreed. But Jessica, this won't be easy. Starting a business never is, trust fund or not. I turned back to him, feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. Nothing worth doing ever is, right? There's one more thing, Virgil said, his expression serious. If you accept this challenge, you can't tell anyone about the trust fund. Not your father, not Meredith, not even Lucy. The money must appear to come from your own savings and investors. Your grandmother was adamant about this. Why? She wanted your success to be yours alone. No one could claim they helped you or that you had an unfair advantage. I nodded slowly, a plan already forming in my mind. Can I take these documents to review? Of course. Virgil gathered them into a folder. Jessica, your grandmother believed in you. She saw something in you that reminded her of herself. As I stood to leave, Virgil called after me. One last thing. Meredith called yesterday, asking if you'd been here. She seemed concerned about any potential legal action. I smiled, thinking of my stepmother's worried face. Let her worry. I've got better things to focus on now. Walking out of the office building, I finally replied to Lucy's messages. Meet me for coffee. I've got an idea. My grandmother had given me more than money. She'd given me a chance to prove myself, to build something of my own. And unlike the inheritance my father had promised, this was something no one could take away from me. I looked up at the sky, silently thanking my grandmother for her foresight. She'd known I might need an escape route, and she'd provided one, but only if I was willing to work for it. Challenge accepted, Grandma. An eco-friendly business? Lucy stirred her latte, raising an eyebrow. That's quite a pivot from corporate finance. We sat in our favorite coffee shop, laptops open, surrounded by the buzz of afternoon customers. I'd spent the last hour outlining my ideas, careful to avoid mentioning the trust fund. Think about it, I said, turning my laptop to show her my research. The market for sustainable products is exploding. People want to feel good about their purchases, but they don't want to sacrifice quality or convenience. Lucy leaned forward, scanning the screen. And you're thinking, what exactly? Salt, biodegradable packaging solutions for businesses. Everything from takeout containers to shipping materials. I pulled up another tab. Did you know most companies want to go green, but can't find reliable suppliers? The few that exist charge astronomical prices. And you think you can do better? I know I can. I opened my spreadsheet. I've already found 3 potential manufacturers who can produce at scale. If we can streamline the supply chain and build direct relationships with businesses, we could revolutionize the industry. Lucy's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. Heads up, Quentin's been asking around about you. Apparently, Meredith's worried you're planning some kind of legal action. Let them worry, I said, thinking of the folder from Virgil sitting safely in my apartment. I've got bigger plans. Speaking of plans, Lucy said, lowering her voice, how are you going to fund this? Starting a business isn't cheap, and you just lost your job. I'd prepared for this question. I've got savings, and I'm planning to approach investors. My experience at Dad's company gives me credibility. Jess, Lucy hesitated. Are you sure you're not just doing this to prove something to your father? I'm doing this for me, I replied firmly. Dad made his choice. Now I'm making mine. The coffee shop door chimed, and I froze as Quentin walked in, wearing his usual designer outfit that screamed, "Trust fund, baby." He spotted us and sauntered over, pulling up a chair without asking. "Well, well," he smirked. "Planning your next career move? I heard HR is hiring." I closed my laptop slowly. "Actually, I'm starting my own company." His laugh was sharp. "You? A company? With what money?" "That's none of your business," Lucy cut in, her tone icy. "Look, sis." Quentin leaned forward, his voice dripping with fake concern. "Why don't you come back to the company? I could use someone with your administrative skills." "I appreciate the offer," I said, keeping my voice steady, "but I'll pass. Some of us prefer to build something of our own, rather than having it handed to us." His smile faltered. "Dad's worried about you, you know. He thinks you're not thinking clearly." "Dad lost the right to worry about me when he gave you everything he promised me." I started packing up my things. "Tell him I'm fine, better than fine, actually." "Whatever you're planning," Quentin called as we stood to leave, "it won't work. You're not cut out for this." I turned back, meeting his gaze. "Watch me." Outside, Lucy linked her arm through mine. "You know what? I'm in. Whatever you need, market research, networking, anything. Let's show them what you can do." I hugged her, grateful for her support. "First step, we need to find office space. Something professional, but not too expensive." "Already on it." Lucy pulled out her phone. "There's a new co-working space downtown. Very eco-friendly. They might even become your first client." As we walked, I spotted my reflection in a store window. I looked different somehow. Stronger, more determined. My grandmother had built her own empire from nothing. Now it was my turn. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Quentin says you're starting a business. Let's talk about this. Come to dinner tomorrow?" I showed Lucy the message. She snorted. "He's probably worried you'll become competition." "Not yet," I replied, typing out a response. "Can't make dinner. Too busy building my future." I hit send and turned off my phone. "You know," Lucy said as we reached her car, "your grandmother would be proud of you." If only she knew how right she was. I smiled, thinking of the trust fund waiting to be activated. But first, I had to prove I could do this on my own terms. "Come on," I said, getting into the passenger seat. "Let's go look at that office space. I've got some ideas for the pitch deck we need to create." As we drove away, I caught sight of Quentin watching us from the coffee shop window. Let him watch. Let them all watch. They thought they'd knocked me down, but they'd actually set me free. And I was going to soar. "Your samples look impressive." Sarah, the restaurant chain executive, turned the biodegradable container in her hands. "But how can you guarantee consistent supply? We've been burned before by startups that couldn't deliver." I sat in her sleek downtown office, 3 months into building my company, Green Shift Solutions. The meeting was my biggest pitch yet, a potential contract that could make or break us. "We've already secured partnerships with 3 manufacturing facilities," I replied, pulling up the supply chain presentation on my tablet. "I can show you our production capacity projections." "I've seen the numbers," Sarah interrupted. "What I need to know is why I should trust you over established suppliers." I leaned forward. "Because unlike them, we're not just selling products. We're offering a complete packaging transition solution, including staff training and waste management consultation. Plus, our prices are 20% lower." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. 20%? How? "Streamlined operations and direct manufacturer relationships. No middlemen." I didn't mention the trust fund that had helped secure those relationships. "We can start with a trial run if you prefer." Before Sarah could respond, my phone buzzed. Quentin's name flashed on the screen. I declined the call. "Family business?" Sarah asked, noticing my expression. "Former family business," I corrected. "I'm building something new now." She nodded slowly, then reached for the contract. "Let's start with a 3-month trial. 2 locations. If it works out, we'll discuss expanding to all 30 restaurants." My heart soared, but I kept my expression professional as we shook hands. Outside her office, I finally let myself smile. our first major client. My phone buzzed again. Quentin had left a voicemail. Against my better judgment, I played it. "Hey sis, heard you're making waves in the eco-friendly space. Let's grab coffee. I have a proposition that could benefit us both." I deleted the message and called Lucy instead. "We got it," I announced when she picked up. "The restaurant chain contract." "I knew you would," Lucy cheered. "This calls for celebration. Drinks tonight?" "Can't. Meeting with potential investors tomorrow morning. Rain check?" "You're working too hard," Lucy sighed. "But I get it. Just don't forget to—" She was cut off by another incoming call. My father this time. I ignored it. "Still not talking to them?" Lucy asked. "Nothing to say." I reached my car, juggling my phone and briefcase. They made their choice. I'm making mine. Back at our small office in the co-working space, I found Quentin waiting by my desk. He wore his usual smirk, but something about his expression seemed forced. "Nice setup." He gestured around the modern space. "Very modest." "What do you want, Quentin?" "Can't a brother check on his sister?" He perched on my desk. "Actually, I have a business proposal. Dad's company is looking to go green. Good PR, you know. We could use your services." I stared at him. "You want me to supply packaging to the company you stole from me?" "Come on, Jess. It's just business. Think about it. Guaranteed contracts, stable income. Dad feels bad about how things turned out. This could be a way to keep you in the family business." "I have my own family business now," I replied, setting down my briefcase. "And we're doing just fine without your help." "Are you?" He picked up a prototype container. "These startup costs must be killing you. Where'd you get the capital anyway?" "That's none of your concern." I took the container from his hands. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." "Dad's not going to like this," Quentin called as I walked him to the door. "He thinks you're being stubborn." Dad lost the right to an opinion about my choices. I held the door open pointedly. "Send my regards to Meredith." After he left, I sank into my chair, hands shaking slightly. They were getting nervous. Good. The restaurant chain contract would be announced next week, and then everyone would know Green Shift Solutions was a serious player. My phone lit up with a text from Sarah. "Contract signed and sent to your lawyer. Looking forward to working together." I smiled, thinking of my grandmother. She'd built her empire from nothing, facing much bigger obstacles than I was. The trust fund helped, but the vision, the work, the determination, that was all me. Opening my laptop, I began preparing for tomorrow's investor meeting. Let Quentin run my father's company into the ground. I was building something better, something sustainable, in every sense of the word. The future was green, and I was going to lead the way. Not as my father's daughter or Quentin's stepsister, but as my own person, as my grandmother's granddaughter. The Sustainability Conference Hall buzzed with energy as I finished setting up our Green Shift Solutions booth. 6 months of hard work had led to this moment, our official launch into the broader market. Press badges mingled with corporate name tags in the growing crowd. "Hi, everything looks perfect." Lucy adjusted our banner. "The prototypes are getting a lot of attention already." A reporter from the Business Weekly approached, notebook in hand. "Ms. Jessica, I'd love to get your thoughts on disrupting the sustainable packaging industry." Before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through the crowd. "Disrupting? That's a bit ambitious, isn't it?" Quentin stood there, wearing a suit that probably cost more than our booth rental. Behind him, my father and Meredith lingered, watching the scene unfold. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Industry event, sis. Open to all players." Quentin picked up one of our display containers. "Though calling these revolutionary seems like a stretch, we're launching our own eco-friendly line next quarter, actually." The reporter's pen moved quickly across her notepad. "Mr. Quentin, you're saying your company is entering the sustainable packaging market as well?" "Indeed," he smiled. "With our resources and established client base, we'll be able to offer much more competitive pricing than smaller operations." Lucy stepped forward, but I touched her arm. "Actually," I said to the reporter, "I'd love to discuss our recent contract with national restaurant chain. They chose us specifically for our innovative approach and cost-effective solutions. The reporter's eyes widened. National restaurant chain? That's a significant account for a new company. We've also secured partnerships with 3 major retail chains, I continued, watching Quentin's smirk fade. Would you like to see our impact projections? Jessica, my father stepped forward, his voice low. Can we talk privately? Sorry, Dad. I'm busy with potential clients. I turned back to the reporter. Shall we discuss those projections? As I walked away with the reporter, I heard Meredith whisper, How did she land those contracts so quickly? The next hour flew by in a whirlwind of interviews and demonstrations. Our booth drew consistent crowds, especially after the Business Weekly tweeted about our national restaurant chain partnership. This is going better than we hoped, Lucy beamed, handling another inquiry. We've got 5 potential clients wanting meetings next week. I spotted Quentin arguing with my father near the entrance, gesturing angrily in my direction. Moments later, he stormed over to our booth. Real cute, he spat. You just had to steal the spotlight, didn't you? Steal? I laughed. Like you stole my inheritance? That company was handed to me fair and square. Exactly. I met his gaze. Nothing in your life was earned, Quentin. That's the difference between us. You think you're so clever. He lowered his voice. But where did you get the startup money, huh? Dad's been asking questions. Something doesn't add up. Sounds like a you problem. I turned to greet another potential client, but Quentin grabbed my arm. Listen, you little... Is there a problem here? A tall man in an expensive suit interrupted. I'm Thomas from Eco Retail Group. We're very interested in your products, Jessica, but if this isn't a good time... Quentin released my arm, forcing a smile. No problem at all. Just a family discussion. Former family, I corrected, extending my hand to Thomas. Shall we discuss your packaging needs? As I led Thomas to our meeting area, I caught sight of my father watching from across the hall. For a moment, our eyes met. He looked older somehow, worried. Meredith whispered something in his ear, and they turned to leave. Impressive operation you've built, Thomas commented, reviewing our catalog. Your grandmother would be proud. I froze. You knew my grandmother? He smiled. Margaret was a force of nature. We served on several boards together. She always said her granddaughter would shake things up someday. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I blinked them away. I hope I'm living up to her expectations. From what I've seen today, you're exceeding them. He pulled out a business card. Let's set up a proper meeting. Eco Retail Group has over 200 stores that need sustainable packaging solutions. By the end of the day, we'd collected more business cards than I could count. Lucy hugged me as we packed up the booth. You showed them, she said. You showed everyone. I watched Quentin leave with his tail between his legs, no doubt heading back to report our success to my father. Let them worry. Let them wonder. My phone buzzed with a text from Virgil. Your grandmother's trust fund is officially activated. First profitable quarter confirmed. Congratulations. I smiled, tucking the phone away. The money had helped, but today's success? That was all mine. And this was just the beginning. Green Shift Solutions announces 3rd consecutive quarter of growth. Lucy read from her tablet, feet propped on my new office desk. Eco-friendly packaging startup disrupts industry with innovative solutions. I gazed out the floor-to-ceiling windows of our downtown headquarters, still amazed at how far we'd come in 18 months. Read the part about the expansion again. Under CEO Jessica's leadership, the company has secured contracts with major retailers and restaurants nationwide, with plans to expand internationally by next quarter. The door burst open, and Maria, our office manager, rushed in. Jessica, you need to see this. She handed me her phone, displaying a breaking news article. Joseph Industries stock plummets amid environmental violations and mismanagement concerns. Your father's company? Lucy leaned over my shoulder to read. Oh, wow, this is bad. The article detailed how my father's company had been caught disposing of toxic materials illegally, trying to cut costs after several quarters of declining profits. Quentin's leadership was specifically mentioned as a factor in the company's downturn. My phone started ringing. Meredith's number. I declined the call. "They're saying the fines could be in the millions," Maria added, "plus the cleanup costs." Another call, my father this time. I sent it to voicemail. Lucy sat up straight. "You don't think they'll try to come to me for help?" I finished. "They already are." I showed them my phone screen, displaying a text from Quentin. "Need to talk. Family emergency, please." "What are you going to do?" Lucy asked quietly. Before I could answer, Maria's phone buzzed. "They're in the lobby," she said. "Your father and Quentin. Should I send them away?" I thought about all the nights I'd cried myself to sleep after they took my inheritance, about Quentin's smug face at every industry event, about my father's silence when I needed him most. "No," I decided. "Send them up." 5 minutes later, they stood in my office, looking distinctly uncomfortable. My father had aged years in months, and Quentin's designer suit couldn't hide his desperation. "Nice office," my father said, looking around. "You've done well for yourself." "What do you want?" Quentin stepped forward. "We need your help. The environmental violations. They happened under the old system before we took over, but you covered them up instead of fixing them," I finished. "I saw the report. The fines will bankrupt us," my father said quietly. "We need a partner with experience in sustainable practices, someone who can help us transition and rebuild trust." "And you thought of me?" I laughed. "How convenient." "Look," Quentin's voice cracked. "I know we were wrong about everything. You clearly know what you're doing. We're offering you a chance to come back, to be part of the family business again." "Part of the family business?" I stood up. "You mean the business you stole from me? The one you've run into the ground?" "Jessica, please." My father stepped forward. "We're family." "Family?" I walked around my desk. "Where was family when you gave everything to Quentin? Where was family when he tried to sabotage my company? Where was family when Meredith spread rumors about my funding sources?" They both had the grace to look ashamed. "I built this company from nothing," I continued. "No family connections, no inherited clients, just hard work and vision. Something neither of you would understand." "We can offer you majority shares," Quentin said desperately. "Whatever you want." "I don't want your failing company," I replied. "I have my own." My father sank into a chair. "Without help, we'll lose everything." "Like I lost everything?" I pressed a button on my desk. "Maria, please show them out." "Jessica." My father stood, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "I'm sorry for everything. I made a terrible mistake." For a moment, I felt my resolve waver. Then I remembered my grandmother's words in her will. Jessica needs to understand what it means to lose everything before she can truly build something of her own. "I'm sorry too, Dad," I said softly. "But you made your choice. Now you have to live with it." After they left, Lucy hugged me. "Are you okay?" I looked around my office, at the awards on the walls, the growing team beyond my door, the skyline view I'd earned through my own efforts. "You know what?" I smiled. "I really am." My phone buzzed with another text from Quentin. "Please reconsider. We need you." I deleted it without responding. They'd needed me before, when I was working 80-hour weeks learning the business. They'd needed me when I brought in new clients and modernized systems. They just hadn't valued me. Now they could watch as their company crumbled while mine soared. Sometimes karma worked in perfect ways. The news of Joseph Industries' bankruptcy splashed across every business publication. I sat in my office, scrolling through the headlines. Family company collapses. Environmental violations lead to corporate downfall. CEO Quentin steps down amid crisis. A knock on my door interrupted my reading. Maria poked her head in. "Your father's here again. Third time this week." I sighed, closing my laptop. "Send him in." He entered slowly, looking nothing like the powerful businessman I'd grown up admiring. His suit hung loose on his frame, his hair now more gray than black. The house is being sold, he said without preamble, sinking into the chair across from me. Meredith's filing for divorce. I heard. I kept my voice neutral. Where's Quentin? Dubai, supposedly, trying to secure investors. He laughed bitterly. No one will touch us now. I poured 2 cups of coffee, sliding one across to him. Why are you here, Dad? I had a lot of time to think lately, he said, staring into the cup. About choices, about legacy. Your grandmother would be so disappointed in me. Probably, I agreed. She believed in earning success, not handing it over. Like you did. He gestured at my office. 2 years ago, I thought I was protecting the company by giving it to Quentin. I convinced myself he had the right qualities, that you were too emotional. And now? Now I watch you in the news, leading the industry, changing how business is done. He looked up, eyes glistening. You did everything I always wanted for the company, just without me. I had help, I said, thinking of my grandmother's trust fund. Just not from you. The trust fund? He nodded. Virgil finally told me about it last week. Mother always was 3 steps ahead of everyone. I froze. You know about that? She set it up right after I married Meredith. He smiled sadly. She saw what I couldn't, or wouldn't. That I was letting my new wife influence my judgment, letting her push you out. It wasn't just Meredith, I said quietly. You made your choices, Dad. I did. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. That's why I'm here. These are my remaining shares in Joseph Industries. They're not worth much now, but... He slid the envelope across my desk. They should go to you. They always should have been yours. I stared at the envelope. I don't want them. I know. He stood up. But I need you to have them, not to save the company. It's too late for that. But because they belong to you. Because I was wrong. Dad, you know what the worst part is? He moved to the window, looking out at the city. Watching you succeed without me. Knowing I could have been part of something extraordinary if I just believed in my own daughter. I joined him at the window. I would have made you proud. You did make me proud, Jessica. Just not the way I expected. He turned to face me. You built something better than I ever could. You did it your way, the right way. Yo, is that why Meredith's leaving? Because you lost everything? He shook his head. She's leaving because Quentin emptied their accounts before he fled. Like mother, like son, I suppose. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. What will you do now? Start over, get a small apartment, maybe consult, if anyone will hire me. He straightened his tie. I'm not here to ask for help, Jessica. I just needed you to know that I understand now. And I'm sorry. As he turned to leave, I called out, Dad? He paused at the door. There's a coffee shop around the corner. They make decent breakfast sandwiches. If you wanted to, maybe next week. A small smile crossed his face. I'd like that. After he left, I opened the envelope, looking at the worthless shares of my father's fallen company. Then I glanced at my own company's latest financial reports. Another record quarter. Lucy burst in. Did I just see your dad leaving? Are you okay? I'm fine, I said, and meant it. Actually, I'm better than fine. What did he want? I tucked the envelope into my desk drawer. To admit he was wrong, to say he's proud of me. And are you going to help him? I thought about my grandmother, about legacy, about earning success. No, I said finally, but I might have breakfast with him next week. Lucy smiled. Your grandmother would approve of that. Looking out at my growing empire, I knew she was right. Sometimes karma wasn't about revenge. It was about finding your own path, even when others tried to block it. And sometimes, just sometimes, it was about being strong enough to listen when those who wronged you finally admitted their mistakes. The autumn breeze rustled through the cemetery as I placed fresh flowers on my grandmother's grave. The marble headstone gleamed in the morning sun, her name etched in elegant script. I brought someone to see you, Grandma, I said softly, stepping aside as my father approached. He placed his own bouquet beside mine, his hands trembling slightly. We'd been meeting for breakfast every Wednesday for the past month, slowly rebuilding what we'd lost. Today, he'd asked to come here with me. "Hello, Mother," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I should have visited sooner." My phone buzzed. Another news alert about Quentin. He'd been arrested in Dubai, trying to use fake documents to access frozen accounts. Meredith had already fled to Europe with whatever she'd managed to salvage from the wreckage of their lives. "Did you see the news?" Dad asked. I nodded. "Karma has a way of catching up." "That it does." He straightened up, adjusting his now-worn tie. "I have something to tell you. I got a job offer yesterday. Small consulting firm, helping companies transition to sustainable practices." "Dad, that's wonderful." "They found me through you, actually. Said if I taught you everything you know about business, I must be worth hiring." He smiled wryly. "I told them you taught me more than I ever taught you." A familiar voice called from behind us. "Jessica, I thought I might find you here." We turned to see Virgil approaching, carrying a folder. "Your grandmother left instructions to give you this after certain conditions were met," he said, handing me the folder. "You've exceeded all of them." Inside was a letter, written in my grandmother's distinctive handwriting. "My dearest Jessica, if you're reading this, you've done more than simply claim your inheritance. You've earned it. You've built something meaningful, something sustainable. But more importantly, you've learned the lesson I hoped you would. That true success comes not from what we're given, but from what we create. I'm sorry I had to be secretive about the trust fund, but I needed you to find your own strength. Your father had to learn his lesson too, though I suspect his will be harder. Remember, legacy isn't about money or power, it's about impact. Make yours count. All my love, Grandma." Tears blurred my vision as I passed the letter to my father. He read it silently, then folded it carefully. "She knew," he said quietly. "She knew I would fail you, and she prepared for it." "She knew you could learn from it," I corrected. "Just like she knew I needed to lose everything to build something better." Virgil cleared his throat. "There's more. Your grandmother left instructions for a charitable foundation to be established once you proved yourself. The paperwork is ready. She wanted you to lead it." I stared at him. "A foundation?" "To help young entrepreneurs, especially women, start sustainable businesses." He smiled. "She believed in paying it forward." My father touched the headstone gently. "That sounds exactly like her." Looking between my grandmother's grave and the folder in my hands, I felt everything come full circle. She hadn't just given me an escape route, she'd given me a mission. "Dad," I said suddenly, "would you like to help? With the foundation? Your experience could be valuable." He looked startled, then deeply moved. "You'd trust me with that?" "Trust is earned," I replied. "Just like success. But everyone deserves a chance to rebuild." Virgil handed me a pen. "Shall we make it official?" As I signed the foundation documents on my grandmother's grave, I felt a profound sense of peace. My father stood beside me, not as the man who had betrayed me, but as someone learning to be better. Somewhere in Europe, Meredith and Quentin were facing the consequences of their actions. And here I was, building something new again, not out of revenge or spite, but out of hope. "What would you name it?" my father asked. I looked at my grandmother's name on the headstone, remembering her strength, her foresight, her belief in earning one's way. "The Legacy Foundation," I decided, because true legacy isn't what we inherit, it's what we build. The autumn wind picked up, scattering leaves around us. In that moment, I could almost feel my grandmother's approval. She'd known all along that losing my inheritance would lead me to something greater. Not just success, but understanding. Not just wealth, but wisdom. And as I stood there between my father and my grandmother's grave, holding the future of a new foundation in my hands, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, building better, and helping others do the same. That was the real inheritance my grandmother had left me, and I intended to make it count.
The doorbell pierced the silence at 3 in the morning, followed by 3 sharp knocks that echoed through my house like gunshots. I froze at my desk, spreadsheets forgotten, my hand hovering over the calculator. Nobody rings at this hour unless something's terribly wrong. I'm Ariana, and until tonight, I thought I had everything figured out. The knocking came again, more insistent. My bare feet made no sound on the hardwood as I crept toward the door, phone clutched in my hand, 911 already typed but not sent. Through the peephole, I saw nothing but empty porch, the motion lights casting harsh shadows across my carefully tended flower beds. Hello? I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. Silence answered. I should have left it alone. Should have called the police or woken Michael. But something pulled me toward that door, call it instinct, call it fate, call it the universe's sixth sense of humor. The bundle on my welcome mat was so small I almost missed it. A soft whimper drifted up, and my heart stopped. I yanked the door open, and there it was, a newborn, wrapped in a pale blue blanket, red-faced and squirming. Oh my God. The words escaped in a whisper as I scooped up the infant. Warm. Alive. Real. A folded paper fluttered to the ground, my name written in hurried strokes across the front. My hands shook as I unfolded it, cradling the baby against my chest. Dear Ariana, meet your husband's son, Evan. Born yesterday. I thought you should know what Michael's been up to while working late. Take care of him or don't, I'm done playing happy family with a coward who won't leave his wife. Olivia. The words blurred as I read them again and again, willing them to change, to make sense, to be anything but what they were. The baby, Evan, began to cry, a thin, reedy sound that cut through my shock like a knife. Mommy. Samantha's voice drifted down from upstairs. I heard noises. Go back to bed, sweetie, I called back, amazed at how normal I sounded. Everything's fine. Everything was not fine. Everything was so far from fine it had crossed into some bizarre parallel universe where my husband of 8 years had another family. Where some woman named Olivia had just dropped her newborn on my doorstep like an unwanted package. I carried Evan to the kitchen, moving on autopilot. Formula. We'd need formula. And diapers. And Michael's car pulled into the driveway, headlights sweeping across the windows. Of course. Of course he'd come home now, after his late-night assignment. I stood there, holding his secret in my arms, watching him through the window as he checked his phone, fixed his hair in the reflection. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never seen him so clearly. He used his key, whistling some tune I didn't recognize. The sound died when he saw me. You're still up. He smiled, that charming smile that had won me over all those years ago. Then his eyes landed on the bundle in my arms, and the color drained from his face. What's that? That? I looked down at Evan, who had fallen asleep, innocent and oblivious. This is your son. Olivia says hello, by the way. The silence that followed was absolute. In it, I could hear the sound of my marriage cracking, of trust shattering, of 8 years of memories being rewritten with ugly truth. Ari, I can explain. Can you? I met his eyes, surprised by how calm I felt. Can you explain why your mistress just abandoned your newborn son on our doorstep? Can you explain why you've been lying to me, to our daughter, to everyone? He took a step forward. I took a step back. Don't. My voice was ice. Don't you dare come near us. Upstairs, Samantha's door creaked open again. Michael's eyes darted toward the sound, panic replacing the guilt on his face. We can't do this now, he whispered urgently. Let me explain everything tomorrow, when Sam's at school. I looked at him, really looked at him, and wondered how I'd ever love someone so completely while knowing them so little. You're right, I said softly. We can't do this now. But tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to do this in front of everyone. I spent the night cataloging lies. Each receipt Michael left in his coat pockets, every late meeting marked in his calendar. All those mysterious phone calls he'd step outside to take. The evidence of his betrayal stretched back months, maybe years. I'd been too busy running my business, raising our daughter, being the perfect wife, to notice the obvious. David arrived just after dawn, legal pad in hand. My brother, always the methodical one, always ready to fight my battles. He found me at the kitchen table, surrounded by paper trails and a sleeping Evan in the borrowed bassinet from our neighbor. Jesus, Ari. When's the last time you slept? Sleep is for people whose husbands don't have secret families. I pushed Michael's credit card statements toward him. Look at these charges. Jewelry stores, high-end restaurants I've never been to, hotel rooms. David picked up a receipt, his jaw tightening. The bastard wasn't even trying to hide it. Why would he? I trusted him completely. The laugh that escaped me sounded foreign, bitter. I was the perfect mark. Where is he now? Upstairs, pretending to sleep. He's too much of a coward to face me. I touched Evan's tiny hand, his fingers curling reflexively around mine. Did you know he tried to convince me the baby wasn't his? Said Olivia must be lying, must be trying to extort money. And you believe otherwise? Look at him, David. He has Michael's eyes, his chin. Even his ears. My voice cracked. He looks more like Michael than Samantha does. Heavy footsteps on the stairs made us both turn. Michael appeared in the doorway, dressed for work like it was any other morning. The sight of him in his pressed shirt and perfect tie made my stomach turn. David. Michael's voice was carefully neutral. This is a private matter between my wife and me. Private? I stood up slowly. Like your private dinners with Olivia. Your private hotel rooms. Your private son. Ari, please. You're not thinking clearly. Don't. David stepped between us. Don't you dare try to gaslight my sister. Michael's facade cracked slightly. I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. But we can work through this. For Samantha's sake. Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield. The words came out sharp enough to draw blood. While you were playing house with your mistress, I found every receipt, every message, every lie. Would you like to explain the transfers from our joint account to an offshore bank? Or should I have David do some digging into that too? The color drained from Michael's face. What transfers? The ones you thought I wouldn't notice because I trusted you to handle the finances. I slid another paper across the table. $200,000, Michael. Where is it? Mommy. Samantha's small voice made us all freeze. She stood on the stairs in her unicorn pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Why is everyone yelling? Michael moved toward her. Everything's fine, princess. Don't. My voice was steel. Don't you dare lie to her too. I turned to my daughter, softening my tone. Sweetie, go pack your favorite toys. We're going to stay at Uncle David's for a while. But what about school? I'll drive you, just like always. I managed a smile. Go on now. When she disappeared upstairs, Michael grabbed my arm. You can't take my daughter. David's hand clamped down on Michael's wrist. Remove your hand, or I'll remove it for you. The baby started crying, a sharp wail that cut through the tension. I pulled away from Michael to lift Evan, who quieted immediately in my arms. Look at that, I said softly. He already knows who he can trust. I met Michael's eyes. You have until noon to pack your things and leave. After that, I'm calling the police and reporting the financial fraud. Your choice. You wouldn't. The woman you married wouldn't. But I'm not her anymore. I turned to David. Can you help Samantha pack while I get Evan ready? Ari, please, Michael's voice cracked. I'll do anything. I looked at him one last time, this stranger wearing my husband's face. You already did everything. That's the problem. The sound of his desperate pleas followed me up the stairs, but for the first time since last night, I felt something other than pain. Something that felt dangerously like purpose. Finding Olivia wasn't difficult. A quick search through Michael's phone, left behind in his hasty departure, led me to the Grand Hotel downtown. Of course he'd keep her somewhere expensive, somewhere that matched his inflated sense of importance. I adjusted my blazer, checking my reflection in the elevator's polished doors. Power suit, perfect makeup, wedding ring conspicuously absent. The woman staring back at me looked dangerous. Good. Room 742. I knocked once, sharp and professional. Room service, I called out, my voice honey-sweet. The door opened, and there she was, younger than I'd imagined, beautiful in that calculated way that takes effort. Recognition flickered across her face, followed by something like amusement. Well, Olivia said, leaning against the doorframe. I wondered when you'd show up. May I come in? Unless you'd prefer to discuss Michael's embezzlement in the hallway. That wiped the smile off her face. She stepped aside, and I entered what had to be a $500 a night suite. My money. Our money. Where's my son? She tried to sound demanding, but fear edged her words. Safe. Which is more than I can say for his father's future. I settled into an armchair, crossing my legs. Tell me, how long did it take you to realize Michael wasn't the golden ticket you thought he was? I don't know what you're talking about. No. I pulled out my phone, started reading. Olivia Brooks, formerly Olivia Martinez. 2 previous relationships with married executives. Both ended in generous settlements after threatened lawsuits. You're getting predictable. She sank onto the couch, mask cracking. You've been investigating me. Did you really think I wouldn't? The moment you dropped Evan on my doorstep, you made this my business. I leaned forward. But here's what fascinates me, you miscalculated this time. Michael isn't wealthy. I am. He said he had money. That he was going to leave you. The money he showed you. That was stolen from my company. Which means those offshore accounts you thought would be your safety net. They're about to be frozen. Color drained from her face. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone. I'm sure Michael's already trying to reach you, warning you that everything's falling apart. I watched her grab her phone. Saw her face change as she read the messages. He's not coming to save you, Olivia. He's running. This isn't, I never meant, she looked up, suddenly younger, more vulnerable. I just wanted security. For me and Evan. By destroying another woman's family. By abandoning your newborn. My voice stayed level, but my hands shook. You want to know what real security looks like? It's building something yourself, not stealing it from others. What are you going to do? I stood, smoothing my skirt. Nothing. I'm going to walk out that door and let karma do its job. The police are already investigating the embezzlement. Michael's journalist credentials are being reviewed. Your previous activities are becoming public knowledge. You bitch. She launched to her feet. You think you're so perfect. Michael told me everything about you. How cold you are, how focused on your precious business. And yet here I am, raising your son while you hide in a hotel room. I moved to the door, then paused. Oh, and Olivia. The room's been charged to your personal card. Seems Michael cancelled his before he fled. Her scream of rage followed me into the hallway. I made it to my car before the trembling overtook me, before the tears started falling. My phone buzzed, a message from David. Police just picked up Michael at the airport. He had a ticket to the Cayman Islands. I started laughing, the sound bordering on hysterical. Of course he'd run. Of course he'd leave Olivia holding the bag, just like he'd left me holding his son. Another message came through, this one from an unknown number. You have no idea what you've started. Oh. I saved the number, smiling through my tears. Let her threaten. Let her scheme. She had no idea what I was capable of, what lengths I would go to protect what was mine. And now, somehow, that included her abandoned son. Game on, I whispered, starting the car. In the rearview mirror, I saw Olivia watching from her window, 7 stories up, looking small and desperate and dangerous. Just like Michael, she'd learn. Nobody hurts my family without consequences. Lucas agreed to meet me at a coffee shop across town, far from his usual haunts with Michael. He arrived late, shadows under his eyes, fidgeting with his wedding ring, a nervous tell I remembered from countless dinner parties. You look terrible, I said, pushing a coffee toward him. Yeah, well, finding out your best friend's a fraud will do that. He pulled out a USB drive, placed it between us like a loaded gun. What I found. Ari, it's worse than embezzlement. My fingers curled around my cup. Tell me. Michael's been writing hit pieces on your competitors. Taking bribes to tank their reputations while promoting businesses that pay him under the table. Lucas wouldn't meet my eyes. The money trail leads back to your company's accounts. He's been using your success to make his schemes look legitimate. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. How long have you known? I suspected something was off 6 months ago. The lifestyle changes, the stories that didn't add up. He finally looked at me. I should have told you sooner. Yes, you should have. I kept my voice level, even as rage burned through my veins. What changed your mind? Olivia came to see me yesterday. Wanted me to help her blackmail Michael. He laughed, hollow and tired. Said she had evidence that could destroy both of you. Your company, your reputation, everything you've built. My phone buzzed. A text from David, police want to question you about company finances. Call me ASAP. Of course. Michael had made sure his tracks led back to me. The articles, I said slowly. They're under my company's letterhead, aren't they? Lucas nodded. You're listed as the primary source. Michael made it look like you were orchestrating everything. Perfect. I stood up, gathering my coat. Thank you, Lucas. You've been very helpful. That's it. Ari, you could go to prison. No, I cut him off. I won't. Because you're going to help me prove who really wrote those articles. How? I smiled, and something in my expression made him lean back. Because you're going to wear a wire and meet with Michael. He trusts you. He'll confess. He's my best friend. Was your best friend. I leaned forward, dropping my voice. Choose carefully, Lucas. Right now, you're either a witness or an accomplice. Which would you prefer? His hand shook as he reached for his coffee. When? Today. He's desperate, running out of options. He'll talk. I stood up. Oh, and Lucas. If you warn him, remember, I have copies of all your communications about those articles. Every email, every text. You're not who I thought you were. No. I'm who Michael and Olivia made me. I gathered my things, pausing beside him. 3 o'clock. David will meet you with the wire. Don't be late. Outside, I checked my phone again. 3 missed calls from my mother, a text from Samantha's teacher about her being withdrawn at school, and an email from my company's board requesting an emergency meeting. My perfectly constructed life was unraveling, threads pulling loose with every revelation. But beneath the chaos, a strange calm had settled over me. Michael hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he'd tried to destroy everything I'd built, everything I was. Another text came through, this one from Olivia, last chance to negotiate. Tomorrow's headlines will be interesting. I saved the message with the others, evidence mounting like ammunition. Let them think they had me cornered. Let them believe I was desperate. They had no idea what I was capable of. My phone rang again, David this time. "The police are at your office," he said without preamble. "They're seizing computers." "Good," I replied, starting my car. "Let them find everything Michael left behind. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Ari. Are you sure about this?" I thought about Michael's schemes, Olivia's threats, Lucas's belated conscience. About Samantha's confusion and Evan's innocence. About 8 years of love twisted into a weapon against me. "Yes," I said, pulling into traffic. "It's time everyone learned what happens when you try to bury someone who knows how to grow." The recording of Michael's confession played through my office speakers, his voice filling the room like poison. Lucas had done his job well, too well. Every damning word, every scheme, every betrayal laid bare in high-definition audio. "I had to protect us," Michael was saying to Lucas. Ariana was too focused on her precious company to see what was happening. The competitors were closing in. I did what I had to do. I stopped the playback, my hand steady as I poured another drink. David sat across from me, legal pad covered in notes, while Lucas paced by the window. "It's enough to clear you," David said. But it'll destroy the company anyway." I finished my drink. "The scandal alone will tank our stock." "I'm sorry, Ari." Lucas stopped pacing. "If I'd known sooner." The door burst open. Michael stood there, wild-eyed, clutching his phone. "You set me up." "Hello, darling." I didn't move from my desk. "Heard from Olivia lately?" "You bitch." He advanced into the room. "You turned Lucas against me. Convinced him to tell the truth." I stood slowly. "That must be an alien concept for you. Everything I did was for us. To protect what we built. What I built." My voice cut through his excuses like a blade. "My company. My reputation. My life that you tried to destroy." He laughed, a harsh sound. "Your life. What about our daughter? What about Evan? Don't you dare bring them into this." "Why not? You're using my son as a weapon against me. Keeping him from his father." "His father." The glass shattered in my hand, but I barely felt it. "You abandoned him on my doorstep like garbage. You left him with a stranger because you were too much of a coward to face what you'd done." Blood dripped from my palm onto the carpet. David moved toward me, but I waved him off. "Olivia's going public," Michael said. "Tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the city will know how you orchestrated everything. The bribes, the hit pieces, all of it. Let her." I opened my desk drawer, pulled out a thick file. "But first, she might want to see these." His face paled as I spread photos across the desk. Olivia with other married men, bank statements showing her previous settlements, medical records revealing her calculated pregnancies. "You weren't special, Michael. You were just next in line." I met his eyes. "Did you really think I wouldn't investigate? That I wouldn't find every skeleton in her closet? You don't understand. She'll destroy everything." "No, you don't understand. I moved around the desk. I already destroyed everything. I leaked the story an hour ago. Every detail, every scheme, every lie, it's all public now. Your career is over. Your reputation is finished. And Olivia? I smiled. The police are probably arriving at her hotel right now. He lunged for me. David and Lucas grabbed him, but not before he knocked me back against the desk. Pain shot through my cut hand as I caught myself. "You've ruined everything," he shouted, struggling against their grip. "No, Michael. You did that yourself." I straightened, ignoring the blood now staining my white blouse. "The difference is, I'm going to rebuild. You're going to watch everything you tried to steal crumble around you." "What about Samantha? What will she think when she learns what you've done?" The question hit harder than his physical attack. "She'll learn that her mother fought back. That sometimes justice looks like revenge." "Security's on their way up," David said, still restraining Michael. I looked at my husband, this stranger wearing 8 years of lies like a second skin, and felt something final settle in my chest. "Goodbye, Michael." I gathered the files, my voice steady. "Give Olivia my regards when you see her in court." His threats followed me out of the office, but they held no power anymore. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with news alerts about the breaking scandal. By morning, everyone would know the truth. I touched the wedding ring I still wore, then slowly slid it off. Sometimes revenge doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers, patient and precise, until everything falls perfectly into place. The news vans surrounded my house like vultures, their satellite dishes pointed at my windows like accusing fingers. Inside, Samantha clutched Evan to her chest, both children sleeping through the chaos while my mother paced the living room. "They're saying horrible things about you on TV," Nancy said, muting another breaking news segment about my company's scandal. "That woman, Olivia, she's giving interviews, claiming you threatened her, that you stole her baby." My phone buzzed. Another message from the board, effective immediately: "You are suspended pending investigation." Let her talk. I watched another camera crew set up on my lawn. The truth will come out. The truth. Nancy stopped pacing. "Ariana, they're freezing your accounts. The police want to question you about kidnapping. Michael's lawyer is filing for emergency custody of both children." My hands shook as I poured another coffee I wouldn't drink. Through the window, I could see reporters interviewing my neighbors, probably asking about the mysterious baby that appeared on my doorstep. About Michael's affair, about my supposed manipulation of the media. David burst through the door, suit disheveled. "We have a problem. Olivia's pressing charges. She claims you orchestrated everything, the affairs, the financial fraud, even abandoning Evan, to frame Michael and destroy his career. That's ridiculous. It's working." He dropped a stack of papers on the coffee table. "She has emails, texts, voice recordings, all doctored, but convincing. She's painting you as an obsessive wife who couldn't handle Michael's success, who manufactured evidence to destroy him." My coffee cup slipped, shattering on the floor. Samantha stirred at the noise, and Evan began to cry. "Give him to me," I whispered, taking the baby. He quieted immediately, his tiny hand wrapping around my finger. How could anyone believe I'd orchestrate his abandonment? "Mommy?" Samantha's voice was small. "Are the bad people going to take Evan away?" I held both children closer, breathing in their innocent scent. "No, sweetheart. No one's taking either of you anywhere." My phone rang. "Lucas. Turn on channel 7. Now." The screen flickered to life, showing Michael and Olivia together at a press conference. She looked perfectly distressed, tears streaming down her face as she described how I'd threatened her, forced her to give up her baby. manipulated evidence to frame them both. I just want my son back, she sobbed into the microphones. I was scared. Ariana said she'd destroy me if I didn't do what she wanted. Michael played his part perfectly, the concerned father protecting his mistress, his voice thick with rehearsed emotion. We just want what's best for both children. Ariana needs help. Her obsession with destroying me has gone too far. Turn it off, I whispered, but nobody moved. And the offshore accounts? A reporter asked. The fraudulent articles. All traced back to Ariana's IP address, Michael said smoothly. She used my journalism contacts, my reputation, to orchestrate everything. I was blind to it, trying to protect her, until it was too late. The room spun. Everything I'd gathered, every piece of evidence, every careful plan, they'd turned it all against me. Made me the villain in my own story. We need to get you out of here, David said urgently. They'll be serving the arrest warrant soon. We can fight this, but not if you're in jail. No. I stood, still holding both children. I'm not running. I'm not giving them that satisfaction. Ariana. They want to paint me as unstable. Fine. Let them try. But I'm not leaving my children. I'm not hiding from their lies. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Through the window, I could see police cars approaching, reporters running toward them with cameras raised. Mom, I said quietly, take the children upstairs. They don't need to see this. As Nancy led them away, Samantha looked back at me with those wise eyes. Are you going to fight the bad people, Mommy? Yes, baby. I squared my shoulders as red and blue lights flooded the room. I'm going to fight them all. The pounding on the door began, accompanied by shouts of police. Open up. I looked at David, at my mother, at the life I'd built crumbling around me. Sometimes, I said softly, you have to lose everything to win anything at all. The courtroom fell silent as Olivia took the stand, her designer outfit and perfectly timed tears a masterclass in manipulation. I sat between David and Lucas, watching her perform for the judge, my hands steady despite everything at stake. Miss Brooks, David approached, his voice deceptively gentle. Could you explain these documents? The papers appeared on the overhead screen, bank statements, hotel receipts, text messages. Olivia's practiced composure flickered. Those are private. They show a pattern, don't they? 6 different married men over 3 years. 6 relationships that ended in threatened lawsuits and generous settlements. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat as David continued. And this medical record from 3 months ago, it indicates you weren't pregnant when you claimed to be carrying Mr. Reed's child. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Olivia's lawyer jumped up with objections, but I barely heard him. I was watching her face, seeing the mask crack. That's not, those records are fake. Like the baby you claimed was yours. David's voice hardened. The DNA test results came back this morning, Miss Brooks. Evan isn't your child. He isn't Michael's either. The gallery exploded. Michael stood up, face ashen. What are you talking about? Evan belongs to Thomas Harrison, David continued, displaying another document. A wealthy businessman you targeted last year. The same man who disappeared mysteriously after refusing to pay your blackmail demands. Olivia's composure shattered. You don't understand, I needed to destroy my family. I stood, unable to stay silent. To use an innocent child as a weapon. Order. The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. You think you've won. Olivia's mask fell completely, revealing something ugly beneath. Michael still chose me. He still betrayed you, abandoned his daughter. No, Michael interrupted, his voice breaking. You said, you promised. What? She whirled on him. That I loved you. That we'd be together. You were a means to an end, Michael. Just like all the others. The truth exploded between them like shrapnel, wounding everyone in its path. Michael staggered back, 8 years of lies finally catching up to him. Your Honor, David's voice cut through the chaos, we have evidence that Miss Brooks orchestrated the financial fraud at Mitchell Enterprises, using Mr. Reed's position to manipulate company records. The offshore accounts trace back to her previous aliases. The screen filled with transaction records, each one damning. I watched Olivia realize she'd been outplayed, that every move she'd made had been anticipated, documented, turned against her. You're just like me, she hissed at me. Using people, manipulating events. No. I met her eyes. I protected my family. You destroyed yours. The doors burst open. 2 police officers entered, followed by a man I recognized from the case files, Thomas Harrison, very much alive and ready to testify. Olivia lunged for her purse. Lucas moved faster, knocking it away. Photos spilled across the floor, dozens of them, showing her with different men, different lives, different lies. Miss Brooks, the judge's voice was iron, you are hereby remanded into custody pending charges of fraud, extortion, and kidnapping. As the officers approached, she turned to Michael one last time. Tell them. Tell them you knew about everything, that you helped me. But Michael was already talking to the district attorney, making a deal, saving himself like always. I watched them lead her away, this woman who'd tried to steal my life. She'd wanted revenge against the world that had denied her what she thought she deserved. Instead, she'd gotten justice, the real kind, the kind that comes from truth. Mom. Samantha's voice came from behind me. I turned to find her with my mother, Evan sleeping peacefully in Nancy's arms. It's over, baby. I pulled her close, breathing in her innocent scent. The bad people can't hurt us anymore. What about Daddy? I watched Michael being led away by his lawyer, his shoulders bowed under the weight of his choices. Daddy made mistakes. But you'll always have me. And Evan? Yes, I said softly, taking the baby from my mother. And Evan. We're going to be okay. The truth tasted like victory, like justice, like peace. The adoption papers sat on my desk like a promise. Thomas Harrison had signed away his rights to Evan without hesitation, grateful for the evidence that had exposed Olivia's schemes. One signature from me would make it official, would make us a family in the eyes of the law. Though we'd been one in truth since that night on my doorstep. My pen hovered over the line. Still thinking about Michael? Nancy asked, watching me from the doorway. No. I signed my name with steady strokes. Thinking about karma. How sometimes what looks like revenge is really just the universe setting things right. Through the window, I could see Samantha in the garden, showing Evan a butterfly while David pushed them on the swing set. My daughter had grown older in these past weeks, but stronger too. Like me. The board reinstated you, Nancy said, setting down the morning paper. The headline read, Mitchell Enterprises CEO cleared of all charges. They didn't have a choice. The truth has a way of demanding attention. And Michael took a plea deal. Minimal jail time in exchange for testimony against Olivia's other victims. I closed the adoption file. He'll never work in journalism again. Does that feel like justice? I watched my children playing, thinking about revenge and redemption, about how thin the line between them really was. It feels like freedom. The doorbell rang. Lucas stood outside, holding a familiar box. Found these while cleaning out Michael's desk at the paper. Old photos spilled across my desk, wedding pictures, family vacations, moments that had seemed perfect until I learned to look closer. In each one, Michael's smile held a shadow I hadn't noticed before. You know what's strange? I gathered the photos, dropping them in the shredder one by one. I don't feel angry anymore. Just awake. Awake? Like I've been sleeping through my own life, seeing what I wanted to see. The last photo disappeared into the shredder. Not anymore. Samantha's laughter floated through the window, pure, unguarded joy. Evan's baby giggles joined in, a harmony I never knew I needed. The investigators found more of Olivia's victims, Lucas said quietly. They're building a class action suit. Want you to testify? No. I stood, straightening papers that didn't need straightening. I'm done looking backward. Mommy. Samantha burst in, holding Evan carefully like I'd taught her. Can we have ice cream for lunch? Uncle David said to ask you. I took Evan, breathing in his baby scent. He grabbed my necklace, not my wedding ring, which now lived in a safety deposit box as evidence, with perfect infant precision. Ice cream comes after real food, I said, but found myself smiling. Even when Uncle David suggests otherwise. Worth a try, David called from the hallway. My mother touched my arm. You did good, baby. Not just surviving, thriving. We all did. I looked around at my strange, beautiful, chosen family. At the life I'd rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. Sometimes the happy ending isn't what you thought it would be. Sometimes it's better. The afternoon sun painted shadows across my desk, across the adoption papers that made official what my heart had known since that first night. Across the future stretching out before us, uncertain but ours. Come on, I said, shifting Evan to my hip. Let's go make lunch. Real food first, then ice cream. And stories? Samantha asked, taking my free hand. Yes. I squeezed her fingers gently. But maybe some new ones this time. We left the study together, leaving behind the shredded photos, the old memories, the ghosts of what might have been. Outside, the garden waited with its butterflies and possibilities. With its promises of growth after destruction, of beauty after pain. Sometimes revenge looks like justice. Sometimes justice looks like moving forward. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they both look like love.
You think I married you for love? Don't kid yourself, Evelyn. You're just a stepping stone. The words hung in the air, sharp and cold. I stood there, frozen, my hand still gripping the spatula I'd been using to make breakfast. Grayson's eyes, once warm and inviting, now gleamed with a cruel satisfaction. What? I managed to choke out. He laughed, a sound that used to make my heart flutter, but now sent chills down my spine. Oh, come on. You can't be that naive. Did you really think someone like me would settle for someone like you without an agenda? My name is Evelyn, and this is the moment my fairy tale shattered. I set the spatula down, my movements slow and deliberate. Someone like you? And what exactly is that supposed to mean? Grayson leaned against the kitchen counter, his perfectly pressed suit a stark contrast to my flour-dusted apron. Ambitious. Destined for greatness. Your family's little construction business was just the first rung on the ladder. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the stove, steadying myself. Our marriage. It was all a lie. Not all of it, he said, his tone almost bored. The sex was good. And you did make a convincing trophy wife at company events. Rage bubbled up inside me, hot and sudden. I grabbed the nearest object, a ceramic mug, and hurled it at his head. He ducked, and it shattered against the wall behind him. Get out! I screamed. Get the hell out of my house. Grayson's eyes widened, a flicker of genuine surprise crossing his face. Your house? I think you're forgetting who pays the bills around here, sweetheart. I advanced on him, my voice low and dangerous. My family's company built this house. My sweat and blood are in these walls. Now get out before I show you exactly what a construction worker's daughter is capable of. He held up his hands in mock surrender, that infuriating smirk still playing on his lips. All right. I'm going. But this isn't over, Evelyn. You do well to remember that. The front door slammed, and I collapsed onto the kitchen floor, my mind reeling. How had I been so blind? The whirlwind romance, the lavish proposal, the dream wedding, it had all seemed too good to be true. Because it was. I don't know how long I sat there, surrounded by shards of broken ceramic and the ruins of my marriage. Eventually, I pulled myself up and reached for my phone. With shaking fingers, I dialed the one person I knew I could always count on. Mom, my voice cracked. I need you. An hour later, I was sitting in my parents' cozy living room, a mug of tea warming my hands. My mother, Rose, sat beside me, her arm around my shoulders. My father, Oliver, paced by the fireplace, his face a storm of concern and anger. I'll kill him, Oliver growled. I'll tear that smug bastard limb from limb. Dad, please, I said wearily. Violence isn't the answer. Rose squeezed my shoulder. Your father's just upset, honey. We both are. To think that Grayson could be so manipulative, deceitful, a complete and utter asshole. I supplied. Despite everything, a small smile tugged at my mother's lips. I was going to say misguided, but your words work too. Oliver stopped pacing and sat down across from us. Evelyn, sweetheart, I know you're hurting, but we need to think practically. What did he mean about using our business? I shook my head. I don't know. He always acted like the company was beneath him. Said it was just a quaint family business that would never amount to much. Rose and Oliver exchanged a look. Honey, my mother said gently, there's something we need to tell you about the company. For the next hour, my parents laid out the truth about Montgomery Construction. It wasn't just a small family business. It was a rapidly growing enterprise with contracts all over the state. They had been protecting me, they said, wanting me to have a normal life without the pressure of a family legacy. But why didn't you tell me? I asked, feeling betrayed, all over again. Oliver leaned forward, his eyes intense. We were going to, sweetheart. We had a whole plan to bring you into the fold gradually. But then you met Grayson, and everything happened so fast. We thought we had time, Rose added softly. We never imagined he would. Use me as a pawn in his sick game? I finished bitterly. The room fell silent. I stared into my now cold tea, my mind racing. Grayson had seen the potential in my family's company when I couldn't. He had played me, played all of us, for his own gain. Suddenly, I stood up, a new fire burning in my chest. I want in, I declared. I want to learn everything about the business. And then, I paused, my voice hardening. Then I'm going to use every resource at my disposal to make Grayson rue the day he ever thought he could use me as a stepping stone. My parents exchanged another look, this one filled with a mixture of pride and concern. Evelyn, my father said slowly, revenge isn't the answer. It won't heal your heart. I met his gaze, my jaw set. Maybe not, but it'll be a damn good start. I woke up the next morning on my parents' couch, my head pounding and eyes puffy from a night of tears and rage. The smell of coffee wafted from the kitchen, and I stumbled in to find my mother already dressed for work. Morning, sweetheart, Rose said, sliding a mug across the counter. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck, I mumbled, taking a grateful sip. Is Dad at the office already? She nodded. He wanted to get an early start. We have a lot to catch you up on. The events of yesterday came flooding back. Grayson's betrayal, the revelation about our family business. I set the mug down with a clatter. Mom, I meant what I said last night. I want in. I need to know everything. Rose's eyes softened. I know, honey, and we're going to tell you. But first, we need to deal with the more immediate problem. Grayson, I spat. Exactly. Have you checked your phone? I realized I'd left it off since yesterday. Turning it on, I was bombarded with notifications, missed calls, texts, voicemails. All from Grayson. He's trying to backpedal, I said, scrolling through the messages. Baby, I'm sorry. We need to talk. It wasn't what you think. Typical. Rose's face hardened. Don't fall for it, Evelyn. Men like that, they'll say anything to keep their hooks in you. I deleted the messages without responding. Don't worry. I'm done with his lies. We finished our coffee and headed to Montgomery Construction's main office. I'd been here before, of course, but always as a visitor. Now, as we walked through the bustling corridors, I saw it with new eyes. Dad was waiting in the conference room, along with a man I didn't recognize. Evelyn, this is Jack Reeves, our head of legal. Oliver introduced us. He's here to help us navigate the situation. I shook Jack's hand, noting his firm grip and kind eyes. Nice to meet you, Evelyn, he said. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. We all sat down, and for the next 2 hours, my parents and Jack laid out the full scope of Montgomery Construction. I learned about our major projects, our financial standings, and the complex web of contracts and partnerships that made up our business empire. So, I said, my head spinning, we're not just some quaint family business. We're a major player in the industry. Oliver nodded. We've worked hard to build this company, Evelyn, and we've always planned for you to take over someday. We wanted to protect you from the pressure. I felt a pang of frustration. I appreciate that, Dad, but I'm not a child. I could have handled it. You're right, Rose said softly. We should have trusted you more. But now, we need to focus on protecting you and the company from Grayson. Jack cleared his throat. Mrs. Hartman, I've reviewed your prenuptial agreement. The good news is it's ironclad. Grayson has no claim on your personal assets or your shares in the company. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Thank God for small mercies. However, Jack continued, there is the matter of your joint accounts and the house. We'll need to move quickly to secure those assets before Grayson can access them. My father leaned forward. Evelyn, we can handle all of this for you. You don't have to. No. I cut him off. I need to do this myself. I got myself into this mess, and I'm going to get myself out. Rose reached over and squeezed my hand. You're not alone, sweetheart. We're here for whatever you need. I squeezed back, grateful for their support. Thank you. All of you. Now, where do we start? Jack pulled out a folder. First things first, we need to freeze your joint accounts. Then we'll start the process of dividing assets. It won't be easy, Evelyn. Grayson's likely to fight this every step of the way. Let him, I said, a steely resolve settling over me. I'm done being his stepping stone. It's time he learned what happens when you mess with a Montgomery. We spent the rest of the day strategizing. By the time we finished, I had a clear plan of action. I would move back home temporarily, freeze our accounts, and file for divorce. It wasn't going to be pretty, but I was ready for the fight. As we were wrapping up, my phone buzzed. A text from Grayson. We need to talk. I'm coming over tonight. I showed it to my parents. He doesn't know I'm not at the house, I said. Oliver's face darkened. I'll go over there, and… No, Dad. I interrupted. I need to face him myself. It's time I stood up to him once and for all. Rose looked worried. Are you sure, honey? You don't have to do this alone. I stood up, feeling stronger than I had in months. I'm sure. Grayson thinks he can manipulate me, use me for his own gain. It's time he learned just how wrong he is. As I left the office, I felt a mix of fear and determination. The old Evelyn might have crumbled in the face of Grayson's charm and lies, but that Evelyn was gone. In her place stood a woman ready to reclaim her life, her dignity, and her future. Grayson Hartman was about to learn that he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. I stood in the kitchen of my soon-to-be former home, my hands gripping the counter as I waited for Grayson to arrive. The house felt different now, tainted by the knowledge of his betrayal. Every happy memory we'd shared here now seemed like a cruel joke. The doorbell rang, and I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I opened the door to find Grayson standing there, his usual polished appearance slightly disheveled. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I thought I'd married. Evelyn, he said, his voice soft. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. I stepped aside, letting him in without a word. He moved past me, his expensive cologne filling the air. Look, Grayson started, running a hand through his hair. What I said yesterday, I didn't mean it. I was angry, frustrated. You know how I get when work is stressful. I crossed my arms, my voice steady. And what about Maya? Was she just stress relief too? His eyes widened for a fraction of a second before he composed himself. Maya? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me, Grayson. Not anymore. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang again. Confusion crossed Grayson's face as I moved to answer it. Standing on the porch was Lydia Hartman, her perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit a stark contrast to the tension in the air. Mother? Grayson said, surprise evident in his voice. What are you doing here? Lydia swept into the house, her eyes darting between us. I came to see how you two were doing. I've been so worried. I bit back a bitter laugh. Worried about her son's plan falling apart. More like. Evelyn, dear, Lydia said, her voice dripping with false concern. Grayson told me about your disagreement. I'm sure it's all just a misunderstanding. I met her gaze, refusing to be cowed. There's no misunderstanding, Lydia. Your son made his intentions quite clear. Lydia's eyes narrowed. Now, let's not be hasty. Every marriage has its rough patches. I'm sure if you just tried a little harder. That's enough, Mother, Grayson interrupted, looking uncomfortable. I felt a surge of anger. Tried harder? I gave everything to this marriage. I supported Grayson's career, played the perfect wife at his work events, put my own dreams on hold. And for what? To be used as a stepping stone? Lydia's mask of concern slipped for a moment, revealing a flash of contempt. Well, dear, you can hardly blame Grayson for wanting more. After all, you're not exactly from our circle. The room fell silent. Grayson looked mortified, but I noticed he didn't jump to my defense. I took a deep breath, channeling all the strength I'd found in the past 2 days. You're right, Lydia. I'm not from your circle. I come from a family that values hard work, honesty, and loyalty, the qualities that seem to be in short supply in the Hartman household. Lydia gasped, affronted. How dare you? No. I cut her off. How dare you come into my home and try to manipulate me? I see through you both now. Grayson married me for my family's company, and you went along with it because you thought you could control me. Grayson stepped forward, his charm offensive in full swing. Evelyn, baby, that's not true. I love you. We can work this out. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Save it, Grayson. I'm done with your lies. I've already frozen our joint accounts and contacted a lawyer. This marriage is over. The color drained from Grayson's face. You what? You can't do that. I can, and I have, I said, my voice steady. You underestimated me, Grayson. You thought I was just some naive girl you could use and discard. But I'm a Montgomery, and we don't break that easily. Lydia's face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little. I think it's time for you both to leave, I interrupted, moving towards the door. Grayson grabbed my arm. Evelyn, please. We can talk about this. I wrenched my arm free. There's nothing left to say. Get out of my house. Both of you. For a moment, I thought Grayson might argue further, but something in my expression must have convinced him of my resolve. He nodded stiffly and turned to his mother. Come on, Mother. We're leaving. Lydia looked like she wanted to say more, but Grayson practically dragged her out the door. As they reached the porch, Lydia turned back, her eyes cold. This isn't over, Evelyn. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I met her gaze unflinchingly. Neither do you, Lydia. Neither do you. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. The house felt emptier now, but also lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. I pulled out my phone and dialed my mother's number. Mom, it's done. They're gone. Rose's voice was warm and supportive. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Are you okay? I took a deep breath, surveying the house that had once been my dream home. I will be. I think it's time for a fresh start. As I hung up, I felt a sense of possibility wash over me. Grayson and his family had tried to break me, to mold me into their perfect, compliant wife. But they had failed. I was stronger than they knew, and I was ready to reclaim my life on my own terms. The war might not be over, but I had won this battle. And I was just getting started. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. The confrontation with Grayson and Lydia had ignited a fire in me, and I was determined to see this through. I dressed quickly and headed to Montgomery Construction, ready to dive into my new role and start gathering the evidence I needed. As I walked into the office, Rose met me with a concerned smile. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" "I'm okay, Mom," I assured her. "Actually, I'm better than okay. I'm ready to fight back." She squeezed my arm. "That's my girl. Come on, there's something I need to show you." We headed to her office, where she pulled out a thick file. "I've been doing some digging," she said, her voice low. "Grayson's been up to more than just having an affair." I leaned forward, my heart racing. "What do you mean?" Rose spread out several documents on her desk. "Look at these. Financial reports, bank statements, emails. Grayson's been siphoning money from your joint accounts for months." I scanned the papers, my blood boiling as I saw the evidence in black and white. Thousands of dollars transferred to an account I didn't recognize. "Is this for Maya?" I asked, my voice tight. Rose shook her head. "I don't think so. Look at the account name." I squinted at the fine print. "Hartman Enterprises? I've never heard of it." "That's because it doesn't exist," Rose said grimly. "At least, not officially. It's a shell company, Evelyn. Grayson's been funneling money through it, probably to hide it from you during the divorce." The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Not only had Grayson betrayed me emotionally, but he'd also been planning to leave me financially destitute. "That bastard," I whispered, my hands shaking with rage. Rose placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "I know it's hard, honey, but we can use this. With this evidence, we can nail him to the wall in the divorce proceedings." I nodded, my mind racing. "We need more, though. If he's been doing this with our personal accounts, what's he been doing with the company?" For the next few hours, Rose and I pored over financial records, cross-referencing dates and transactions. It was tedious work, but with each discovery, my resolve strengthened. By mid-afternoon, we had uncovered a disturbing pattern. Grayson had been manipulating contracts, inflating costs, and skimming off the top. He'd been careful, never taking enough to raise immediate suspicion, but over time, it added up to a significant amount. "He's been stealing from the company," I said, my voice hollow. "From my family." Rose's face was a mask of controlled anger. "We've got him, Evelyn, but we need to be smart about how we use this information." Just then, there was a knock at the door. Oliver poked his head in, his expression grim. "Evelyn, there's someone here to see you." I exchanged a worried glance with Rose before following my father out. To my surprise, standing in the reception area was Maya Reynolds. She looked as polished and beautiful as ever, but there was a vulnerability in her eyes that I'd never seen before. "Evelyn," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I think we need to talk." I led her to a private conference room, my mind whirling. What could Grayson's mistress possibly want with me? Once we were seated, Maya took a deep breath. "I'm so sorry," she blurted out. "I didn't know. I swear, I had no idea you and Grayson were still together." I felt a flicker of pity for her, despite everything. "He lied to you too, didn't he?" She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "He told me you two had separated months ago, that he was just waiting for the right time to file for divorce." I believed him. God, I was so stupid. I handed her a tissue, my own emotions a confusing mix of anger and empathy. "You're not stupid, Maya. Grayson's very good at what he does." Maya composed herself, then reached into her purse. "I found something. After you sent those documents to my place." I started looking closer at some things Grayson had left at my apartment. She pulled out a USB drive. "There are emails on here. Plans. He was going to use me to get to my father's company, just like he used to for Montgomery Construction." I took the drive, my hand shaking slightly. Thank you, Maya. This could change everything. As Maya left, I felt a strange sense of camaraderie with her. We'd both been pawns in Grayson's game, but now, we were taking back control. I rushed back to Rose's office, brandishing the USB drive. Mom, we've got more evidence. It's time to take this to the next level. Rose's eyes gleamed with determination. What do you have in mind? I smiled, a plan already forming. I think it's time we set a trap for Grayson, and I know just how to do it. As we began to strategize, I felt a surge of confidence. Grayson had underestimated me, thinking I was just a naive, compliant wife. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. The game was changing, and this time I was going to be the one calling the shots. The next week passed in a blur of meticulous planning and carefully orchestrated deception. By day, I threw myself into work at Montgomery Construction, learning the ins and outs of the business I'd ignored for too long. By night, I plotted Grayson's downfall with a determination that surprised even me. Are you sure about this, Evelyn? My father asked one evening as we pored over the final details of our plan. There's no going back once we set this in motion. I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. I'm sure, Dad. Grayson needs to pay for what he's done. To me, to our family, to the company. Rose squeezed my hand. We're with you, sweetheart. Every step of the way. As the day of Grayson's business trip approached, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and dread. I had to play my part perfectly, maintain the facade of the loving, unsuspecting wife right up until the moment I pulled the rug out from under him. The morning of his departure, I woke early to make Grayson's favorite breakfast. As I stood at the stove, flipping pancakes, I felt his arm snake around my waist. Something smells good, he murmured, nuzzling my neck. I forced a smile, turning to face him. I wanted to send you off right. Big presentation today, isn't it? Grayson nodded, his eyes gleaming with excitement that I now recognized as greed. Could be a game changer for the company. For us. If only he knew how right he was. We ate breakfast in companionable silence, Grayson occasionally checking his phone and muttering about last-minute details. I watched him, marveling at how easily the lies fell from his lips. As he prepared to leave, I handed him his briefcase. I packed you a little surprise, I said, gesturing to the front pocket. Don't open it until you're on the plane. Grayson's face softened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd fallen in love with. You're too good to me, Evelyn. I swallowed hard, pushing down the lump in my throat. Have a safe flight. I love you. He kissed me goodbye, and as the door closed behind him, I let out a shaky breath. The surprise I'd packed was a USB drive containing all the evidence of his embezzlement and infidelity. By the time he landed, his world would be crumbling around him. I waited until I was sure Grayson had left before springing into action. I called Rose, my voice steady. It's done.
He's gone.
Time for phase 2. Within an hour, a team from Montgomery Construction arrived at the house. Under the guise of some routine maintenance work I'd scheduled weeks ago, they began the process of documenting every inch of the property. As I watched them work, cataloging our possessions and taking meticulous notes, I felt a strange sense of detachment. This house, once my dream home, now felt like nothing more than an elaborate stage set for Grayson's deceptions. Midway through the day, my phone buzzed with a text from Grayson. Just boarded. Thanks for the surprise, babe. You always know how to make me smile. I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to warn him, to give him one last chance to come clean. But I thought of all the lies, all the betrayals, and my resolve hardened. Glad you like it, I typed back. Have a great trip. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get back. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. There was no going back now. The rest of the day passed in a flurry of activity. I met with our lawyer, finalizing the divorce papers and ensuring everything was in order for the legal battle I knew was coming. I transferred the last of my personal belongings to my parents' house, leaving behind only what was necessary to maintain the illusion that nothing had changed. As evening fell, I stood in the empty living room, memories washing over me. Our first night in the house, the parties we'd hosted, the quiet evenings curled up on the couch. All of it tainted now by the knowledge of Grayson's true nature. My phone buzzed again, a message from Rose. "It's done. Everything's in place. Are you ready for tomorrow?" I took a deep breath, looking around the room one last time. "I'm ready," I typed back. Tomorrow, Grayson would return to find his life in shambles. The house he'd used to impress his colleagues and mistresses would be gone. His reputation, both personal and professional, would be in tatters. And I would be waiting, ready to show him exactly who he'd underestimated. As I locked the front door for the last time, I felt a surge of anticipation. The calm before the storm was over. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. And I was ready for war. The morning dawned crisp and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I stood at the edge of our property, watching as the Montgomery construction crew arrived. Heavy machinery rumbled up the driveway, a fleet of trucks following close behind. This was it, the point of no return. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Evelyn?" my father asked, his voice low and concerned. I nodded, my eyes never leaving the house. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Dad." With a deep breath, I gave the signal. The foreman nodded, and the air filled with the deafening roar of engines coming to life. I watched, heart pounding, as the first excavators claw bit into the side of the house. The crack of splintering wood and shattering glass was like music to my ears. As the demolition progressed, I felt a strange mix of emotions wash over me. Grief for the life I thought I'd had, anger at Grayson's betrayal, and an overwhelming sense of liberation. With each wall that fell, I felt the weight of lies and manipulation crumbling away. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Rose. "It's done. The evidence has been delivered to the authorities. There's no going back now." I typed back a quick reply. "Good. Let it all burn." By midday, our dream home, the stage for Grayson's elaborate deceptions, was nothing more than a pile of rubble. I walked through the debris, picking up fragments of our life together. A shard of the vase we'd bought on our honeymoon, a twisted picture frame that once held a photo of us smiling on the beach. All of it meaningless now. As the crew began clearing the site, my phone rang. Grayson's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and answered. "Evelyn." His voice was frantic. "What the hell is going on? I just got a call from the police. They're saying something about embezzlement and fraud. And why isn't Maya answering her phone?" I let out a cold laugh. "Oh, Grayson. You really should have been more careful with your secrets." "What are you talking about?" he sputtered. "Where are you?" "I'm coming home right now." "Home?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'm afraid you'll find that a bit difficult. You see, our house seems to have had a little accident." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Grayson spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. "What have you done, Evelyn?" I walked to the edge of the property, looking out over the empty lot where our house once stood. "I've done exactly what you taught me to do, darling. I've taken control. I've seized an opportunity. I've used every resource at my disposal to get what I want." "You stupid bitch," he hissed. "You have no idea what you've done. When you get back, you'll find divorce papers waiting for you," I interrupted, "along with a team of lawyers ready to bury you in litigation." "Oh, and I wouldn't count on Maya for support. She's had quite the revelation about your true nature." I could hear Grayson's ragged breathing on the other end of the line. "This isn't over, Evelyn. You think you've won, but you have no idea who you're dealing with." "No, Grayson," I said, my voice steady and cold. "You're the one who had no idea who he was dealing with. I'm not just some stepping stone. I'm Evelyn Montgomery, and I'm the woman who's going to bring your whole world crashing down." I ended the call, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over me. I knew this was just the beginning. Grayson wouldn't go down without a fight, and his parents, Lydia especially, would no doubt rally to his defense. But for the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my own destiny. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the empty lot, I felt a presence beside me. Rose put her arm around my shoulders, and we stood in silence, watching the last of the debris being cleared away. "What now?" she asked softly. I turned to her, a small smile playing on my lips. "Now, we prepare for war. Grayson and the Hartmans are going to throw everything they have at us. We need to be ready." Rose nodded, her eyes gleaming with determination.
"We will be."
"The whole family is behind you, Evelyn. We'll face this together." As we walked away from the ruins of my old life, I felt a surge of strength and purpose. Grayson had underestimated me, seen me as nothing more than a pawn in his game. But he was about to learn that sometimes the pawn becomes the queen. And in this game, I was playing to win. The aftermath of the demolition was a whirlwind of activity. I barely had time to catch my breath before the next phase of my plan kicked into gear. With Grayson's belongings salvaged from the rubble, I set about the task of delivering them to Maya's doorstep, along with a carefully curated package of evidence detailing his deceit. My hands shook as I sealed the final envelope. Inside was a letter to Maya, explaining everything: Grayson's manipulation, his financial fraud, and his plans to use her family's connections for his own gain. I debated long and hard about whether to include the details of our own failing marriage, but in the end, I decided the truth was the kindest thing I could offer her. As I watched the courier drive away with the package, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. There was no going back now. The next 24 hours were a blur of legal meetings and damage control at Montgomery Construction. We'd known there would be fallout from exposing Grayson's embezzlement, but the reality was more chaotic than we'd anticipated. Clients were calling, demanding explanations. The press was sniffing around, sensing a juicy scandal. Through it all, I kept my phone close, waiting for the inevitable. When it finally came, it wasn't a call from Grayson or his lawyers. It was Maya. "Is it true?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, raw with emotion. "All of it." I closed my eyes, steeling myself. "Yes, Maya. I'm so sorry." There was a long pause, filled only by the sound of her ragged breathing. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger, tinged with anger. "He's here now, you know. Showed up at my door an hour ago, full of excuses and promises. I didn't let him in." A wave of relief washed over me. "Good. Maya, I know this is a lot to take in, but—" "Thank you," she interrupted, "for telling me the truth. For not letting him do to me what he did to you." The call ended shortly after, leaving me with a bittersweet sense of closure. One more piece of Grayson's carefully constructed facade had crumbled away, but the real storm was yet to come. It hit with the force of a hurricane the next morning. I was in a meeting with our legal team when my father burst into the room, his face ashen. "Evelyn, you need to see this." He handed me his tablet, open to a local news site. The headline made my blood run cold. Montgomery Construction heir in bitter divorce battle. Accusations of fraud and destruction of property. The article was a masterpiece of spin, painting Grayson as the victim of a vengeful wife and a corrupt family business. It hinted at deeper scandals, suggesting that the demolition of our house was an attempt to destroy evidence of larger financial crimes. "Lydia," I growled, recognizing the manipulative hand of my mother-in-law in every carefully crafted sentence. As if summoned by her name, my phone lit up with an incoming call. Lydia Hartman's number flashed on the screen. I answered, my voice cold. "Hello, Lydia." "Evelyn, darling." Her tone was saccharine, dripping with false concern. "I just saw the most distressing news. Are you all right? This must be such a difficult time for you." I gritted my teeth, seeing through her act. "Cut the crap, Lydia. We both know you're behind this hit piece." She laughed, a brittle sound. "Oh, Evelyn. Always so quick to accuse. I'm merely looking out for my son's interests. Surely you can understand that." "What I understand," I said, my voice low and dangerous, "is that you and Grayson have grossly underestimated me. This little media stunt? It's just the beginning of your problems." There was a pause, and when Lydia spoke again, the fake sweetness was gone from her voice. "You have no idea what you're up against, you foolish girl. The Hartmans have connections you can't even imagine. We'll bury you and your little family business." I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Bring it on, Lydia. I'm not the naive girl you think I am. I've learned from the best. You and Grayson taught me well." I ended the call, my heart pounding. The room had fallen silent, all eyes on me. "Well," my father said, breaking the tension, "I think it's safe to say the gloves are off." I nodded, a grim determination settling over me. We knew this was coming. Time to put our contingency plans into action. For the rest of the day, we worked tirelessly, countering the Hartmans' narrative with our own press releases, reaching out to loyal clients to reassure them, and preparing for the legal battle ahead. As night fell, I found myself standing at the window of my office, looking out over the city. Somewhere out there, Grayson and his family were plotting their next move. But for the first time since this all began, I felt truly ready for whatever they might throw at me. The old Evelyn, the one who had been content to play the role of trophy wife, who had ignored the red flags and swallowed the lies, was gone. In her place stood a woman forged in the fires of betrayal and determination. Grayson had wanted a war. Now he was going to get one. And I intended to win. The legal battle with Grayson and the Hartmans dragged on for months, a grueling war of attrition that tested every ounce of my resolve. But as the dust finally began to settle, I found myself standing on the other side, battered but unbroken. The final hearing was a blur of legal jargon and tense silences. I sat across from Grayson, studying the man I'd once loved. He looked older, the strain of the past months etched into the lines around his eyes. For a moment, I felt a flicker of pity, quickly extinguished by the memory of his betrayal. As the judge delivered her verdict, I held my breath. The words washed over me like a cleansing wave. In favor of the plaintiff, Evelyn Montgomery. It was over. We'd won. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by a sea of reporters, I felt my mother's hand slip into mine. Rose's voice was steady as she addressed the crowd. "Montgomery Construction has always stood for integrity and hard work. Today's verdict reaffirms those values. We're grateful for the court's decision and look forward to moving past this difficult chapter." I met Grayson's eyes as he pushed through the crowd. For a moment, the mask slipped, and I saw a flicker of the man I'd married, vulnerable, almost lost. But then Lydia appeared at his side, her face a storm of barely contained rage, and the moment passed. "This isn't over," Lydia hissed as they brushed past us. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "Yes, Lydia, it is." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. With the legal battle behind us, I threw myself into rebuilding both the company and my life. We weathered the storm of bad press, emerging stronger and more united as a family and a business. On a crisp autumn morning, I stood in front of a modest craftsman-style house, keys in hand. It wasn't the sprawling mansion Grayson and I had shared, but as I walked through the rooms, I felt something I hadn't in years, a sense of home. As I unpacked, I came across a photo album I'd forgotten about. Inside were snapshots of my life with Grayson, our wedding, vacations, parties with friends. I traced my finger over our smiling faces, remembering the hope and love I'd felt back then. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, I allowed myself to cry. Not for the loss of Grayson or the life we'd had, but for the woman I'd been. Naive, trusting, willing to dim her own light to make someone else shine brighter. A knock at the door startled me from my reverie. I opened it to find Maya standing on my porch, looking nervous but determined. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said softly. I wanted to thank you, and to apologize." I invited her in, and over cups of tea, we talked, really talked for the first time, about Grayson, about the pain of betrayal, and about the strength it takes to rebuild. As Maya was leaving, she turned to me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "You know, Evelyn, I used to be so jealous of you. I thought you had everything. But now I see that what you have, your strength, your family, your sense of self, those are the things that really matter." Her words stayed with me long after she'd gone, a reminder of how far I'd come. That night, I sat on my new porch, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. My phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Proud of you, sweetheart. Your father and I can't wait to see the new place tomorrow." I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for my family's unwavering support. They had been my rock through all of this, reminding me of who I was when I'd lost sight of myself. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain, the betrayal, the fight to reclaim my life, it had all led to this moment of quiet peace. I wasn't the same woman who had stood in that kitchen, shattered by Grayson's cruel words. I was stronger now, wiser, more aware of my own worth. I had faced my fears, stood up to manipulation and deceit, and come out the other side. The future stretched out before me, full of possibilities. There would be challenges, of course. The scars of what I'd been through wouldn't fade overnight. But for the first time in a long time, I felt truly excited about what lay ahead. I took a deep breath, savoring the crisp night air. Grayson had called me a stepping stone, but he'd been wrong. I wasn't a stepping stone in someone else's journey. I was the architect of my own path, the builder of my own dreams. As I stood to go inside, I paused for a moment, looking up at the stars. "Thank you," I whispered, to no one and everyone at once. For the lessons, for the strength, for the chance to start anew. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to grow and learn. But tonight, in this moment of hard-won peace, I was exactly where I needed to be. I was home,